Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever the case may be. For all of you listening out there across the crazy planet Earth, welcome to a brand new Vestiges After Dark. And I am your host, Bishop Bryan Willett, coming to you live from the deep woods of western Georgia on the September 24th, 2024. Tonight it is open lines, open topics. You are the guest. You tell us what you want us to talk about in the chat room or call into the show. We'd love to hear your questions, your comments, your stories about anything, any topic that is on your mind. And we will do our best to chat about it, to talk about it, to enlighten you about whatever it is that you want to know about. If we don't know about it, we'll just say we don't know. It's always a fun show when it's open lines, open topics. You got us for 3 hours. Don't go anywhere. Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Vestiges After Dark. Once again, I'm your host, Bishop Bryan Willett, with my co-host, Jamie Wolfe.
Hello.
And we are here for 3 hours to take your questions on this edition of Open Lines, Open Topics. It's like one of my favorite shows to do. We always go off on strange tangents, and you just never know what's going to come up. So we are very happy to be here with you this evening to be able to give you this show and to have this conversation tonight. The bandwidth problems that we had last week, if you noticed, there was a lot of hiccups every now and then. I mean, I guess it wasn't a lot, but there was enough that it bothered me, and I noticed it. That was because the bandwidth isolator that I use to help to keep stability for these live broadcasts was not working, and I got it working for tonight. So we should be good to go for the next 3 hours. I'll keep an eye on it just to make sure that it doesn't stall or something. But usually you can isolate for 2 hours, and then before the third hour, I have to go back and do it again. So as long as it lets me get back in and we don't have the issue, we should be fine tonight without any interruptions or lags or any kind of pixelation or blackouts in audio, whatever was happening last week, it should not happen this week. And we had a great guest last week. That was a really interesting show, wasn't it? Yeah, we're going to have her back on for sure. I think that there's a lot that she could a lot more that we could talk about with that subject on high control groups and high control religion and the trauma that it causes, because I'm all about trying to fix that. You know, I mean, I'm the first one to say religion's not the problem. It is people that are the problem. And when you try to control people and you try to take people's freedom away from them, then you're going to have to answer for that from people like me, because I see freedom as an instrument I see religion as an instrument of freedom. I do not see it as an instrument of control. If your religion controls you, then you're in the wrong religion. And you might say, well, wait a second. What about the Catholic Church? They're controlling. Well, actually, they're not supposed to be.
They're not following their own.
They're not supposed to be. We're supposed to be about 1,000 years evolved beyond that at this point. You know, I mean, yeah, we had this little rough patches there in the Middle Ages and whatnot, but I mean, we should be more enlightened today. And the church, the church is instructive. It is a guide. It is not a judge, and it is not an executioner. And it needs to stop acting like churches need to stop acting like that, because that's what's driving people away from religion. So that was a good topic last week. I'm glad that we were able to offer it, and you can definitely rest assured we will have her back on. I think she's one of the best guests we've had on this show in a very, very long time.
And she enjoyed it too.
Yeah, she was exceptional.
Yep.
Very, very good guest. A very helpful, I think. Very helpful. Okay, so I just want to give a shout out to our wonderful team of volunteers. I see Paul out there, Moosh. I know Danielle is over there, and we'll be listening to more of Danielle's music tonight. We've got some new files the old files they weren't working too well with the audio mixer, but we've got some new files that we're going to try tonight. So you'll be able to hear more of Danielle, or Mystic, in the chat room. Mystic's music. It's actually quite good. And she wrote a song that she dedicated to Vestiges After Dark that we played last week. We'll play it again this week in case you missed last week's episode. But I want to thank all of you, Val, all of you wonderful volunteers, for taking time out of your evening to be here to keep the chat safe and to help us make sure that we don't miss any questions, because that's important on a show like this. And I also want to remind all of you that if you find value in this show, please go ahead and click that UR code over there, bring it up on your screen. It will direct you immediately to our donation page, where you can give a pledge. Any donation helps this ministry, and this church completely pays for this show. So, if you like the show, please support it. Helps the church out, helps the ministry out, and helps the show to stay on the air. And monthly donations are really what the show needs. We need stability in the budget, and monthly pledges make that possible. So if you do find value here, please make sure that you don't forget about us, okay? Because this show does not finance itself. We do not have ads on here. And even when I do occasionally have ads, like it's really because I'm doing a friend a favor. It's not that I'm getting paid to do it. It's really because I believe in the product or something. It doesn't happen very often, but if it ever does, you'll know why, because it's not because I'm getting money from them. Okay, so we have got all the way. Well, before we get started here with anything, let's go ahead and get our liturgical libations, and we got a new one here.
I totally forgot.
Yeah, you can't go without that. You can't go without that. So we are doing some fantastic Armagnac here tonight. It is the Lobad Armagnac 1973. So the brandy in this bottle is as old as I am, because that's my birth year. And so 51 years.
It looks like you
I've been polishing it off. Yes, I have. Yes, I have. I thought, you know what? I'm in the mood for some Armagnac. And I like
grateful to try some.
In some ways, I enjoy it even more than cognac. Cognac is a softer taste. Armagnac is a richer flavor. But this is the 73.
Thank you much.
Yes. Very, very special bottle of Armagnac. I picked this one up. I like to give prices just so that people, if they want to find this stuff, if they can find this stuff, know what they're getting into. This bottle was $265, I think. So not going to break the bank, not like last week's.
Definitely for special.
But, I like it around. I like Armagnac in the fall. So tell me what you think of this. This is a wonderful, wonderful. Tastes like Christmas to me.
It definitely tastes like the holidays to me.
Mm-hmm. Is that nice?
A little spicy.
Like Christmas spices. You know?
But very palatable.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
First time having one of these, I believe.
You never had Armagnac?
I don't think so.
Oh well, I mean it's a cousin of cognac. It's a brandy, but it is.
Like brandy.
Armagnacs,
nice.
They lend themselves towards drafting vintages. So the grapes that went into making the juice that was fermented into this brandy was growing when I was probably in the womb.
I was already a year.
You were already a year old, yeah.
I was already causing chaos.
You were already causing
crawling
chaos.
around, knocking stuff down.
Oh my goodness! But this is I might have to go back. We should go back and get the 72. We talked about that.
Yeah, we talked about that. We ever get a chance to go up there, I'll see what we can
They
do.
do have a 72 there as well. They have a 70, 71, 72. They have like several vintages. I don't think they had a 71 now that I think about it, but they definitely had a 72. And they had more 73. So when this bottle's gone, I guess I will have to replenish it.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to.
Yeah. You like it? Pretty good?
Yeah, I would definitely sip on that.
Yeah, a little different. Not
Nice
usually have
cigar would
whiskey
be
on.
good with it.
Well, that's where all this other one.
Just
This is
saying.
where all that went. It was
Yeah.
to cigars and it.
Well done.
Okay.
Well done.
Joining us from Australia, we have the very
Dapper.
yeah, the very nicely dressed Father Chris tonight. I know you have to leave us in 2 hours, so but good luck on your business dealings.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that's right. I thought if I can't sound the part, I might as well look the part.
Yeah. That's great.
I'm also I prefer Armagnac to cognac, actually.
I know you do, don't you?
and,
You do, yeah.
Yeah.
I know why, because you're a Scotch drinker and it's a richer flavor. Cognac's a little bit soft, It's a much softer drink, I think. Armagnac is
I mean,
richer.
they're both good, but 73 was a particularly good year. I don't know if you know that. The great conditions were perfect, basically, in 73. So it's probably about as good as it gets.
I will say it
Pretty darn
is
good.
probably the best Armagnac I've ever had. But there are more bottles at the store, so I'm going to have to go pick some up, and maybe there'll be some here that we can open when you come visit sometime, Father.
That sounds very good.
The retreat house, a little update on the retreat house. It is coming along very nicely. The bedroom set is in there. We're waiting on the box spring. They didn't send a box spring, so that was a little hiccup here, but we'll have a guest room so that when you come out, you don't have to go stay at one of those shady hotels. You can stay right there and be nice and safe.
Yeah, we've got stories about when I
I don't
Father-
think we've told
yeah.
those stories.
No, we haven't. Maybe we'll
taking
get
this
to them
man to the
tonight.
hotel. I'm like, you're staying here? my cop sense is going nuts. I'm like,
Yeah.
you want me to walk you to your door? I mean,
Well, when you came out to visit last time, I didn't know
You
this
just moved
area.
house.
I didn't know this area at all. I had
Yeah.
never been to this part of
I knew this
town.
area from my gang enforcement days.
Yeah.
And
So there's really, really, really nice parts of
then there's
Douglas County, and there's really, really not so nice parts.
when you roll into the parking
I've
lot
seen both.
and you're overwhelmed with the smell of weed and all the doors are on the outside, it's a rule I have. Never stay at a hotel where the doors are on the outside.
Georgia's a lot like that. I think that's like a lot of places. Las Vegas is another one.
Yeah.
He was fine, though. I mean,
it's like you could be in a very expensive all these mansions, and then you
Right.
cross the street, and then you're basically in the slums again. So, it's
Well, I definitely met a gang member, at least one anyway. I mean, I think
good
on
to make
the
friends.
last day I was there, you were coming to pick me up, and this guy, face tattoos with a tear and everything.
well, the closer you get to the closer you get to the highway, the more you see that.
yeah, and it was right off the interstate. Which,
Yes, yeah.
I hadn't quite figured out from abroad, but so he came walking towards me. But what was interesting was, this is my reflection. So I before that I was in Los Angeles, as you know, which is a very dangerous place.
Yes.
They have very very strict gun laws. They have, and it's literally. I mean, I'm not a coward, as you know, but I went on the subway or whatever they call it there once and never again.
Yeah.
In LA, whereas in Georgia, here's the difference, right? So this was a gang member, definitely, or ex-gang member or whatever he was, walking towards me, but from about 200 yards away, he was calling me sir and opening his hands to show he was no threat whatsoever. Because, of course, Georgia has different gun laws to California.
That's correct.
And so it was kind of an interesting practical experience of the difference between, a Second Amendment state and one that has highly restrictive gun laws, in as much as it told me that it's not the laws that keep you safe.
No.
No, I mean it's
Can't legislate the
you.
human heart.
You have to. I personally feel that you are responsible ultimately for yourself. No one's ever going to. You can't count on people coming to your rescue. It'd be nice if it was true, but it's just not. That's not the kind of utopia this fallen world is. You know, you have to make sure that you
he
can.
just assumed I was carrying a firearm, so that's why he was polite, right?
Most are. Yeah, I mean, and most of us are.
Politeness will get you a lot further.
Most of us are. See, that's the good thing is that the law-abiding citizens are carrying weapons, and the law-abiding criminals are not. That's the way it should be. But it's in California, it's the other way around.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it was kind of interesting to see it. You know, I mean, I read about these things and I understand the theory and the intellectual side, but it was interesting to see it in practice. And I think he was asking me, by the way, for an air compressor to blow up his flat tire on probably a stolen car. Yeah. But I think when I responded in my Mancunian accent, he was more bemused than ever. It probably knocked him out better than a 45 could have done.
Like, oh, you're not from here, are you?
Who are you? What are you?
So we will have that guest room ready to go as soon as the Box Springs there. I'll go get the locks ready, and then some internet over there, and then people can at least stay there if they're in town. We'll have a guest house for them. As far as the chapel goes, for those that watch the Mass on this channel on YouTube or the Facebook page, if you're watching right now on one of those two channels, you know that we've been in the process of getting the chapel set up. We've been delayed by the iconostasis, but good news, got contacted by the builder today.
Oh, good.
And he says he's almost finished and getting ready to stain, and he wanted to confirm the color of the stain. So I think we're close to having that done. And once that's in, we can start actually using the building the way it was intended to be used, where people can come and stay in the guest room. And we'll actually have two guest rooms, but only one visit, one family per at a time. You know, we're not going to have multiple people coming to this. Is not a bed and breakfast. We're not a hotel. We made promises to the local community that we're not going to run it that way, and there was never any intention really to do that anyway. So there'll be two guest rooms in case people come with their kids. They don't have to all sleep in the same room. They can have their own little. Oh, and Denise, thank you for
Denise.
that, liking the stream, Denise. Thank you. But they won't have to stay, and they can have the kids can have their own room. So we'll have two guest rooms, but one family stay per at a time, and then they can come to Mass, which will be right downstairs in the same building. So we are close to having all of that behind us, and the new stream will come, and then it'll be a real iconostasis. You see, it won't be these room dividers that we've been makeshifting all these years. Matt Hess, thank you so much for liking the stream. It won't be. It won't be shoddy. It'll be more permanent, and it will feel more like the church that it always should have been. So that's coming up pretty soon. I think you all are going to really like it. The stream should be better. I'll try to even improve the stream with multiple camera angles. This is going to be a actual proper iconostasis. So it will not have, there will not be visibility through it like the room dividers are. And there are iconostasis that you can kind of see through. They're more like screens, but we're going to have more of a traditional Orthodox style, which is completely closed off. So during the actual consecration parts of the Mass, the sacred parts of the Mass, the doors will be shut, and the camera from the congregation point of view will not be able to see anything. You'll be able to hear, but you won't be able to see, which is the way it is in Orthodox churches. But we'll try to get an angle, maybe a couple angles, so that you can kind of see what's going on in the sanctuary, because I think that's important too. Although part of the reason why the iconostasis is there is to create the air of mystery and to kind of remind you that you're seeing something sacred, so that it doesn't become routine. And I think that is the deficit of the Catholic system, the Western Church, having it out there with the altar turned around and everything's just out there. It's like, it's nice if everyone was paying attention and really fully grasp what they were receiving, but they don't. And what happens is when you start...
Even then, it's not nice. I can't stand versus popular celebration. I mean,
Yeah.
I tolerate it, but it's not for every reason you just said. I mean, also it changes the icon of the priesthood as well.
Well, I mean, I know why they did it, because they wanted to kind of, I think, get back to more of the word Eucharist means Thanksgiving, right? And it was not just a Thanksgiving, but a Thanksgiving meal, not in the the autumnal, pilgrim sense of the word here in the United States, but in a sense that the Eucharist evolved out of these small church communities coming together to eat together and break bread together, and then it evolved into more of ritual. As things became more sophisticated, the church became more developed. It turned into more of a ritual system. But in the earliest stages of the church, it was really just a meal, and it was a true meal in the sense. Yes, they still had Eucharist, but it was pretty much served more in the sense as part of the overall meal, not done in a ritualistic sense like it is today, or at least not in the same kind of ritualistic sense. In fact, some reports of the earliest kind of Eucharist, the only consecration that was said really was the Our Father. These prayers of institution, everything that we have now that become part of what's considered valid, it was not really part of the earliest expressions of this. This came out over 1,000 years to develop into what it is today, and even more than 1,000 years, because it's still developing. So I can understand why they wanted to kind of bring back the feeling of the whole community being in there and at the table together. But the problem is that you already shared the mysterious part 1,000 years earlier, and now you have to give that up to go back to something that now people are detached from. And so I think the church moved in this direction towards mystery and ritual because it was directed and inspired by the Holy Spirit to do so. And so that brings us back, of course, to that, should we be making changes that are not necessarily inspired changes by God? And I guess they would say Vatican II was the Holy Spirit, and maybe it was. I don't know. Well, we have to assume it is. Catholics will say that a prayerful Catholic, a faithful Catholic will say, yes, that was the Holy Spirit's, guidance as well. But there's, of course, a lot of division there. And I always get a little cautious when I see the church make a move that becomes divisive, because the Holy Spirit doesn't do divisive things. It does unifying things. Right. And so when something's divisive, I take a step back and say, was this really the Holy Spirit, or was this just the church trying to be relevant, or trying to be more Protestant, or trying to collect people from other religions? I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of things we can talk about that tonight. Joining us also from Tennessee is Brandon. How you doing tonight, Brandon?
I'm pretty good. I don't have to deal with what y'all do down in Georgia, and I don't have to do that. And I guess I got to start learning how to speak alcohol, because I'm not fluent in it at all.
Well, I mean,
it's not a bad thing, Brandon.
I mean, it's not exactly a bad thing. I mean, alcohol is not exactly the best thing for you, though I think it's not the worst thing either. Yeah, I mean, I think that for me, alcohol is an extension of my love of the culinary arts, okay? And I don't really enjoy cooking. I just like eating what I cook. So I cook because I like to eat. And I like going to nice restaurants. And so part of the culinary experience, of course, is a good wine, is a nice after dinner drink, or an aperitif, or something like, you could have beforehand. This is what it comes from. I've never been one to drink. It's like, we'll go to the beach and there'll be family members or friends or whatever drinking White Claws, and I just don't get it. I don't get it, because it's like, I've tried one and they're okay. It's okay. But it's like, I don't understand. It's like, why am I wasting liver real estate on this stuff? It's like,
I sowed my oats back in my early military days. So now it's like, you just want to enjoy a good spirit.
Right. I mean, if I'm, it's obviously, okay, this stuff's not great for your liver. Right. Okay. So if I'm going to be doing something that's not so great for an organ in my body, an essential one that keeps you alive, then I'm going to at least, use some of that vitality on something that's worth consuming. So my rule is the same rule that I have with sugar. Okay. There's a lot of desserts I love, French silk pie, chocolate mousse, pâte de crème. I mean, there's wonderful cheesecake. Godiva cheesecake from the Cheesecake Factory is one of my favorite.
Baked Alaska.
Baked Alaska, yes. Plenty of desserts I love, but there's plenty of desserts I can't stand. I'm not really much for birthday cake. I don't really care for cake, period. I'm not really much of a fan of carrot cake or stuff like that. I like lemon meringue pie. Key lime pie, could take or leave it. But the thing is, it's like you go to these restaurants and they're like, do you want dessert? And you feel like to complete the courses, you need to have dessert. And then you look at the menu, it's like, well, there's
cheese. That's dessert.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. No, you're on the right track here. And so I'm like,
I don't like sugar very much.
No, I don't.
I like fermented sugar, but I don't like any other sugar.
Yes, I don't either. So it's like, if I'm going to waste pancreas real estate, I'm going to do it on something I like. Something that I really, really want to have, not just to stuff my face with something that's sweet and sugary because it's the dessert course.
It was a real problem in parish ministry because, I mean, it's a good thing that especially a lot of the older ladies, they make cakes. They bake cakes, they make biscuits, especially here in Australia. And so, you go on parish visits and everyone is offering, and I just don't eat it. Like, I kind of made that realization when I was quite young. I thought, it doesn't bother me one way or the other, so why waste the calories? I can have some cheese instead, and so, but it honestly became and remains a bit of a barrier because I'm like, I just don't eat it, and it's almost like, it's almost like I don't like them, just because I don't eat there.
Oh, I've got a hell of a sweet tooth.
But I'm just not going to waste my calories on it. I've
that's
got far too much fat to eat.
I mean, that's the whole thing. It's like, and even fat, it's like, I mean, here, as you've probably found out, particularly in the South, breakfast is this exceptionally heavy, fattening, loaded with calories and sugar and syrups and fats. And it's like, I mean, for me, the ideal breakfast is a bagel with lox and capers. That's like my
boiled eggs and 4 cups of coffee.
I mean, something simple, something simple. But one of my favorites is Japanese breakfast, which is basically a miso soup with pickled vegetables in it. I love that. Mm-hmm. In Hawaii, you can get it everywhere. Here in the South, you can't find it anywhere, and any place that serves miso soup is not open for breakfast, so you can't get it at all. You just have to be able to have it at home if you want it, or buy it ahead of time and then make it if you want to have that for breakfast. But this is like the ideal breakfast for me. So again, it comes back to, do I want to waste cardio real estate on fats that I don't like? I mean, it's like, I'm going to be like trying to I'm not going to eat, I'm not a health freak. I'm going to enjoy my life. And when it's over, it's over. And if I ate too indulgently and that ends up contributing to my death, so be it. I enjoyed myself. I had a good time. So, if that happens to me, do not weep for me. I will die a happy man if that's what happens, because, that's exactly the way I wanted it. But I'm not going to go do stupid stuff and just eat anything that's in front of my face. And, so, when it comes to like sugar, cheap alcohol, fattening foods that aren't that great, no, I'm not going to do that. It's going to be something good. So I'm going to save my fats for a nice big porterhouse steak. And yes, I will eat a 60-ounce porterhouse. I do that. I do that on the regular. I mean, it's just what I love. But no, I'm not going to go get a stack of 19 pancakes with just like up 2 jars of syrup on it. I won't do that. That's just not, to me, I don't enjoy that. Now, if you enjoy it, that's great. Make sure you enjoy your life. And if that's what you enjoy, then you need to do it. You should do it. But for me, it's got to be what I like. Otherwise, there's no point in putting it in my body. All right, let's get started here with the questions from the ether. Brendan, what's our first one?
Okay.
So the first question comes from Marina. She asks, I came across this article discussing animals in heaven and the possibility of how it could work. What C.S. Lewis says rang a bell. I think it's very similar to what you have discussed before, that animals may not naturally go to heaven, but since they are a part of our archetypal makeup through the love we had for them, that they could be there through us.
Yeah, okay. So this is a question that comes up frequently, is the idea that do animals go to heaven? Okay. And so there's a lot of things to unpack with this question, because it is one of the most common questions, believe it or not, that clergy get. It's not always answered completely. Sometimes it's answered purely on the hard end of theological, and that's not exactly true either. So there's a middle ground here. The issue comes back to what is going to heaven. What does that mean? Well, when you think, and when you've been taught all your life that heaven is a location somewhere out there in some other dimension, and that it's like perfect happiness and perfect peace, then it's easy to think, well, I want all my family members to be there, everyone I love. And of course, people today see their pets as family members. I know Heathcliff sees himself as part of my family. He will demand it if I don't treat him that way. He'll demand that he's treated that way, because he definitely sees us as part of his little clan. And I think he thinks that we're just part of his cat clan. I really do. People can't conceive of the idea of being eternally in some other place that's supposed to be a place of perfect happiness and not have their animals with them, because they would say that I couldn't be happy without my animals. So the church has tried to answer this, of course, in different ways, because first of all, animals suffer the consequences of the fallen world, but they do not. They did not receive. Well, they did not fall because they did not have the free will to do so. Okay, so the idea is animals don't need salvation. Okay, they're not fallen like we are, or a particular type of animal. So the idea is when Christ comes to redeem us, if you're looking at it strictly from a theological point of view, Christ comes, dies on the cross so that we may attain to salvation and thus go to heaven, whatever that means. We're going to get to that in a minute. Then that, of course, would not include animals, because Christ didn't die for your cat, because your cat, first of all, doesn't need salvation. And second of all, he didn't come to save animals. He came to save people. So when you stop there, and that is a perfectly valid theological statement, but when you stop there, people get upset because they think you just said that they won't go to heaven. Yeah. Well, there's another side of that coin, okay? And it does go back to what people said when they say that, I couldn't be happy in heaven without my animals, because they are a big part of my happiness. Well, there's a couple ways you could look at that. Number one, you don't really know what happiness is, so you can't say that, and you can't possibly imagine the happiness of heaven because there's no conception for that. So you can't argue that you wouldn't be happy without your animals, because you just really don't know what you're actually about to encounter when you get there. Okay, so first of all, you're operating from a very flawed, fallen perspective in the first place. Second of all, why do you think your animals even want a human heaven or want anything to do with that? That's not in their nature. We altered their nature by domesticating them into what they now are as pets, and that's against their nature. In fact, that's why we don't have wild animals in the house, because it's not safe. But domestication makes them makes them docile, and for certain animals makes them stupid. Okay, so cats are unique because I think domestication actually makes them smarter, but I can get to that in a minute.
It's that they domesticated us.
That's why.
That's the difference.
That's exactly why, because we didn't do that to them. But dogs definitely got smarter. A wolf is much smarter than any dog. Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's the general thing. So the idea is, I've heard some priests say, and I do agree with it, but you got to put the caveat in there. If you say that your happiness depends upon the experience of this animal, then heaven would have to produce everything that is part of your experience. So my point is, if truly you were to get to heaven and find out that you could not be happy without your animals there, well, then heaven would probably produce your animals so that you could be happy. And they would be literally the very ones you knew. They wouldn't be fabrications or copies or some kind of illusion. It would be the real thing, okay? It would be the real thing. So when you go to when you go into this concept of there being like animals in heaven, it would have to, if it happens at all, be something that happens or aspires through us. It wouldn't be a natural state for them. So that's the important thing to understand first. The better way to go about answering this question, though, is and Marina's kind of going there, and I had to kind of give you the background so that you could understand her question, because sometimes questions from the ether comes from people that have been following me a very long time or have been students at one point, and they're already talking in a semantics that the rest of the audience doesn't know what they're asking. And this might be one of those kinds of situations, because Marina's been part of the network for a very long time. We've had very deep philosophical conversations for years. So this question is coming from a higher level that the general audience might not be familiar with. So anyway, Marina asked that, C.S. Lewis said that animals may not naturally go to heaven, but since they are part of our archetypal makeup through the love we had for them, they could be there through us. And that is actually correct. And that comes down to a metaphysical explanation for this. So while it is true that they don't need salvation, while it is true that they don't need a human heaven, and nor would they want one, it's not in their nature to even seek such a thing, there is this interesting thing called domestication. And what domestication is, outside of the scientific, psychological, or neurological aspects of it, scientifically that we can isolate, there is a spiritual, metaphysical process to it as well. And I'm going to break that down a little bit to answer the question. So domestication is actually an alignment of an animal's aggregate structure with the person who is the owner of that pet.
Which is why they start to look at each other.
That's why they look like you. If you ever, take a look. When you go out there and you see people with their pets, it is strange how much pets start to look like their owners, and they act like their owners too. Now you could say that, well, they act like their owners because they're copying or mimicking behavior, which cats definitely do this. But at the same time, that doesn't explain why they start to look like their owner. It's because let's face it, animals do have facial expressions, but they're not as expressive as human beings are. So there is something else going on. There's some other pattern going on there. It's a enmeshment of the two patterns. And so if a person, once they take in an archetypal structure from something that they love and care for, like a pet, and that person's structure is saved, because that's what salvation is metaphysically. It is the permanence of the person's structure. Though who you are today is what gets saved. It's not just some spirit that's in you that gets saved. It is you entirely, body, spirit, and soul. All of it gets saved. So who you believe yourself to be today at salvation is the entire you that you are now. And if that includes the union of your aggregate structure with another animal's, then that becomes part of that process too, and thus the animal is indirectly saved through you and is part of this new reality that we call heaven. And it's definitely not a location, it's a reality. Okay, it's more than a location. There's location to it, but it's like you're talking about an entirely new universe. Heaven is not just a place, it's an entirely new everything. Okay, it's everything. The very word universe means everything. Then that's what we're dealing with here. Animals were created to serve creation. But when we fell, okay, what happened is it affected the universe. This is why I say the Roman Catholic theology on the fallen universe is a little bit short-sighted, a little bit myopic. When they start saying that, it's like missing the mark, sinning, and the stain is on a person's soul. Oh no, the Orthodox are the ones that are correct here. The Eastern Church is the one that's correct. It stained the universe. It broke the universe. Otherwise, animals wouldn't die. Why else could you explain theologically that if the penalty or the consequence, I prefer the word consequence, but some theologians might say penalty. If the penalty for sin is death, then why do animals die? Because they can't sin. They don't even have the option to. Okay. And you can't say, well, when a lion kills an animal, that's not sinning. That's nature. And he's eating, he's feeding himself, he's surviving. That's actually what he's supposed to be doing. So that's not sin. So why would they die? Because we broke creation and we broke the animals with them. okay, with creation. And so what that meant is they went from these higher spirits that are here to serve creation to now food supply that we now consume. And we have to kill to eat them. And we have to kill them to preserve our life a little bit longer. You got to eat life in order to stay alive. Otherwise, when you stop eating life, you start dying. And it doesn't matter if you are a vegan because you're eating the life of plants too. Same thing. Even plants fell because now plants die. I mean, they didn't fall, but they were broken by the fall. Plants die too now.
It's why we shouldn't worship creation.
Exactly, because it's broken.
No matter how beautiful it is,
yes.
it's fallen.
It's fallen.
And actually, the archetype is there as soon as the confrontation happens between Adam and Eve and God. He sends them out of the garden, but first he clothes them in animal skin. In other words, animals die, blood is shed.
And see, that's the whole. You just got into a whole. I'm glad it's open lines, open topics, because we could go on for this. Yeah. We could go on with what you just said there for the rest of the show, because that is more profound than you might even realize, because the whole thing about, everyone remembers, of course, when you're kids, everyone remembers the nudity, right? Everyone remembers like the Garden of Eden, Adam and Eve walking around naked. And it's like, when you can't conceive of that would seem weird to us if we all did that today, right? Even nudists, it's like nobody's going to do that outside of context, right? I mean, you might go to the beach and take your clothes off, but you're probably not going to go to work and do that. So it's like the whole idea here is that what's this? Why is nudity such a central theme within the creation story? And it does absolutely get into what you're talking about, because see what happened. And I'm going to really blow your mind here, okay? Because this is high level esotericism now. We're going beyond theology. We're going beyond metaphysics. We're going to go to the highest point of the esoteric Western mystery tradition on this one, okay? So let's talk a little bit more about the animals thing, and then we'll kind of bring it all full circle. So when creation is restored, well, okay, I got to go back even further, because what does it mean when the universe fell? Does it just mean that it broke and it doesn't work right and death is now? And I mean, yes, but what is it really doing? It's fractured. Okay. So instead of there being the wholeness that is the perfection of God, now you have all these splinters of God, fractures of the divine nature all over the place. Okay, and in Judaism, the Kabbalah has this concept, but in Christianity, it's kind of ignored, except in the early points of the church. Gnosticism did get into a little bit of this with the divine sparks from Sophia and all that, and there is some truth there. There is actually some truth there. But let's get back to what is going on here. Okay, and here's where Buddhism helps to bring it all together, because Buddhism actually fills in a big part of the missing features of this story in Judeo-Christian theology. So the fallen world is fractured, is what it really is, which is exactly what the demonic is, fracture. And that's why there's and we're going to get to that question coming up, I see, why there is a legion of demons, and demons usually are running in packs, because you're not dealing with a singular entity. You're dealing with fractures of entities. Even you would say, well, you don't aren't making any sense, Bishop. That's not true. I know I'm one person. Are you? Are you one being, really? Science would disagree with you, because you're made up of countless, millions and millions of cells, which are all individual life forms, all coming together to form a cohesive pattern for a period of time until it breaks apart and dies. But it's still not one entity. It really isn't. An organism is by definition a collection of entities, which is what any one of us is. And not only that, but we're fractured amongst ourselves. So it's not just one man like Adam and one woman like Eve. There's countless, like billions, right, of men and women. All fractures, and animals too. But the fact of the matter is, we all belong to one common spirit. One common spirit. For humanity, that's the Holy Spirit. Not that we are the Holy Spirit, but we contain it. Otherwise, we wouldn't be alive. Okay? That's our core spirit. You might say that Adam and Eve were in perfect union with the Holy Spirit before the fall. They kept the Holy Spirit because they stayed alive and they continued to exist, and we do too, but the perfect union between man, woman, and spirit, Holy Spirit, was lost, was fractured, was broken. They became different things at that point, which is why, incidentally, it says that Eve was created from Adam's rib. That wasn't to make, yes, it's been used to make men superior to women for whatever reason with the misogynistic viewpoints that people argue on both sides of the fence, but it wasn't written in there to be misogynistic. It was written in there to show that there's this proliferation of fracture, okay? Literally, things coming from other things. Same thing with how babies are born, right? The division of cells, right? Everything in creation is about division, and it's that division that causes entropy. That entropy is what causes things to die. This is what causes aging. So even if you don't get killed in a car accident and you don't get some weird disease and you just die of old age, what is dying of old age? It's your cells are just not able to keep dividing. Mm-hmm. That's what aging is, and you just can't regenerate. And then it's it. And you're done. Okay. So all of this is the fallen world. That's what the fallen world is. It's this constant proliferation of fracture, constant proliferation of division, which is why human beings are fighting wars and why they argue over politics, because it's always about fracture. It's never about unity in the fallen universe. We move towards securing our position within scarcity, which is another problem that the fallen universe caused. So animals, when at the end of time in Christian theology, when the resurrection of the dead happens, and then the old heaven and the old earth are cast away, obliterated, annihilated, whatever, and the new heaven and the new earth replaces it, which means there will be a new physical reality and a new spiritual reality. When we get to that point, then all of the animals that were initially part of the creation will be the core spirits will be reunited back to that whole state, and they will be part of creation in that sense, but it won't be the human heaven. It won't be what we conceive of heaven. It'll be part of this new creation. And it stands to reason, if they were part of the old creation, animals will be in the new creation too. So in a sense, you could say that they go to heaven in that sense, but not going to heaven in the sense that grandma's got, wings now because she turned into an angel and she went to live with God. Not that kind of nonsensical sort of fairy tale theology. It's about what's actually happening at the end of time when all things are brought back to the perfection of God. So it's incidentally what was Adam and Eve is the source fracture of the spirit that made us. That's what we are. So it's not, remember, Adam and Eve were not people, not like we are. They weren't fallen people. They were the perfected origination of mankind. And we are the fracture of what they were, which is why and how we inherit the original sin, because we still contain. We're a fraction of what they were. So every woman is a fracture of that original spirit that was Eve. Every man is a fracture of that original spirit, which was Adam.
That's what's behind the because it's a kind of confusing notion to a lot of people that in Genesis we have God dividing man and woman. And putting them at enmity with one another. That's the natural follow-on.
Yes.
You have that's the polarization of the sexes and that's why these themes are repeated in the New Testament, in the Gospels. We are legion, for we are many. The demonic is always like division upon division upon division.
Yes.
Whereas God is one God. God is the wholeness. That unites. God is the uniting principle of the universe.
Yes.
In fact, beyond the universe.
Beyond.
So now there is a prayer which the Book of Common Prayer 1662 was obviously changed. I believe you guys had some kind of a tea party and then a revolution or something, and so you stopped saying the prayers for the king.
Yes.
From the Book of Common Prayer. But actually, there's one in there that relates directly to this.
I wonder why that happened.
But so those poor Anglican clergymen, what were they to do?
I know, right?
And so, but there's I don't know, maybe they replace this with something else, but there's a very short call and response prayer in the Book of Common Prayer, which is, "O Lord, show thy mercy upon us and grant us thy salvation. O Lord, save the King. O Lord, save thy people." And then this, "O God, make clean our hearts within us, and take not thy Holy Spirit from us."
Yes.
So that's that reminder that outside of the Holy Spirit there is no life. So in other words, that's a prayer for the preservation of the King, which in this case means the nation, but also for ourselves, and the acknowledgement that preservation can only come by acknowledging, seeking, honoring the presence of the Holy Spirit.
Well said. So to get back to what Morena was talking about, it really comes down to, will there be animals in heaven? There will be animals in the new creation. Absolutely. But it'll be a restored...
Can I just upset Marina a bit?
Go ahead.
I love Marina, by the way, so I'm saying this from a position of, I think we're friends. Yeah. And I'm going to mischaracterize her completely, because I know that she's probably going to agree with what I'm going to say, but I'll pretend she doesn't.
Well, there'll be somebody out there who will disagree with you, so save it for them.
But I am going to say something quite challenging, because this, as you would not be surprised, in parish ministry, this comes up all the time.
All the time.
Now, if I'm speaking to a 6-year-old, I'm not going to give the same answer. Okay, so right, hear me.
I might, but you're better than me. So.
but Jesus answered questions with questions a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, admittedly, they were to hostile people, and Marina's definitely not that.
No.
But I would say, I'm willing to begin to answer that question much along the same lines as you've just done, but only if you're more concerned about your own salvation, the salvation of your family, your friends, and even your enemies. If you're not concerned about those things before your pets, then your house is not in order.
I like that. I think you are right on track with that, because it really should come secondary. First of all, people need to remember, animals don't need salvation.
Right.
Okay? They don't need it. And they don't want it. They don't want it. That's the harder part for people to get, is that they much rather return to the source spiritual animal that continues to spawn them. So in a sense that there really is only one cat, there really is only, well, two cats, because there is still the polarity of male and female. But you're talking about the core spiritual reality that produces that particular species, because there is a core spiritual reality that produces each and every species. That's what these things, that's what the energy returns to, and it gets spawned again. You might say that's reincarnation, but it's not really. It's not reincarnation in the sense of the same person or the same animal, just in a new body. It's just the spiritual reality proliferates. It continues to fracture here. When the new creation restores everything to wholeness, it won't fracture anymore. It will stay whole. That won't break anymore. You won't have all these fractures, all these different animals. It won't happen like that. It'll be a completely different type of thing. But that's a high level esoteric answer for a show like this. That requires almost like an entire semester of learning to really explain all that.
It's a very common problem that people say, "Oh, I prefer animals to humans." Yeah, do you know what? It's easier, because all you're doing is projecting your own stuff on.
Yeah, and they're more than happy to take that projection. They'll take on whatever you tell them.
Like, big deal. Like, it's much harder to love people. Yeah. That's what you're supposed to do.
Kind of the whole point.
You're being challenged. I mean, that's the whole point of reality. No one wants to be challenged. So yeah, I think that answers the question for as much as we can get into it tonight. I don't think that
it was pretty thorough.
Hopefully, I mean, I don't know if I might have opened more of a can of worms, because it is kind of a deep answer and it's kind of a deep question. But I think it is important, because, like you said, it's a question that comes up a lot. I think people can rest assured that you don't have to worry about your animals when they die, and you don't have to worry about your animals when you die. Okay, it's more than taken care of.
Salvation.
You worry about your own salvation. That's what you do have to worry about. Everything else is that stuff's taken care of. You don't have to worry about that. Okay, you're not going to be unhappy with the outcome. Okay, let me just say, you're not going to be unhappy with the outcome. So don't worry about it. Okay, worry about, like Father Chris said, worry about your own salvation. Okay, so we got calling in from the 978 area code in Massachusetts. Hello, you are on the air with Vestiges After Dark.
Yo, what's good, Bishop Bryan? It's good to be back on the show.
Yes, how are you doing?
It's going good. You remember who this is?
Oh yeah, you're B-Dex, right? B-Dex.
Yeah. I'm glad that you actually remembered.
I do. Yeah. So what's on your mind tonight, B-Dex?
Well, this is not just more of my story, but more of like something that's been going on in like general.
Okay.
But it is within the paranormal activity category.
Right.
And I also do have some news also.
Okay.
So should I just start with my news, or should I get onto the paranormal activity category first?
Start with your news, and then we'll have to take our top of the hour break in about 3 minutes. But if you're not done, we'll have you stay on the line, and we'll finish when we come back from break.
All right, so I'll try to be quick as possible about this one, but I'll probably tell you and if I don't finish it, I'll probably continue after the break. But just wanted to let you guys know that I've taken inspiration from the Ghost of Interest crew, and I decided to start my own ghost channel.
Okay. Oh yeah, YouTube.
Yeah, it's
on
called,
YouTube.
It's called Ghost Exhibitions.
Okay.
I don't run the channel alone. It's I just don't run the. I don't just run the channel. It's also run by my two bros, Jay the Gangster and GT.
Okay. So so we can log in there and watch your investigations.
Yeah. And another thing too is I'm going to start my first paranormal investigation as a group in Hull. Have you ever heard of the Revere Forts?
I'm not sure I have.
I have not.
In Hull?
No, I don't think I know about that.
What is it, B-Dex?
You still there, B-Dex? Did we lose you?
Wait, hold on. I think my audio got cut off.
Yep, you did, but you're back. Oh, you're gone again. All right, B-Dex, you sort through your audio there. We'll leave you on. Don't hang up or call back if you have to hang up. And we're going to take our break here. When we come back, we got more questions from the ether and more questions from all of you. Don't go anywhere.
wisdom guiding every step I take. In her embrace, I found my way. Her love, the light impossible to shake. A heart so pure, a spirit so bright. In my soul, she ignites my fight. Mom, you are my rock, my greatest friend. In the tapestry of life, on you I depend. Though the years pass, my love won't fade. In every sunrise, your spirit cascades. From whispered dreams to laughter shared, every moment showed how much she cared. I carry her strength, the love she shared. In every heartbeat, her presence laid bare. Through every storm, her voice still guides. With memories cherished, her love never hides. Mom, you are my rock, my greatest friend. In the tapestry of life, on you I depend. Though the years pass, my love won't fade. In every sunrise, your spirit cascades. Forever in my heart, you'll always stay. With love so deep, I'll find my way. Mom, you are my rock, my greatest friend. In the tapestry of life, on you I depend. Though the years pass, my love won't fade. In every sunrise, your spirit cascades. Forever in my heart, you'll always stay. With love so deep, I'll find my way.
Welcome back, everyone, to the second part of Vestiges After Dark. We are now going to start looking at more of your questions, so please start logging them into the various chats on Facebook, on YouTube, Instagram, wherever, and our moderators will collect them and bring them to us so that we can answer them. If you've got a story, we'd like to hear from you as well, or just a comment. It doesn't have to be a question. It's best to call into the show, though, and the number to call is 802-321-0073. That's 802-321-0073. If you're international, you can call us free on Skype. Eye of the Seer is all you have to dial up. Eye of the Seer, EYEOFTHESEER, and you can call us free of charge. We got B-Dex still on the line, and hopefully we can hear him this time, and he can finish his story when we come back here with more questions from the ether as well. Don't go anywhere. So let's go ahead and give this a try here and see if we can listen, hear what BDEX has to say. BDEX, are you still with us?
Bishop Bryan?
Yes. Can you hear? Oh, hang on.
Okay, thank God. It's still working.
Yeah, it's still working. Yeah, can you hear me?
Is it not working?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. All right, so continue your story.
All right. As I was saying before I continue on, everyone who is listening or watching this, please be sure to subscribe to Bishop Bryan on YouTube.
Thank you. We need it.
Now since that part is out of the way, yes, as I was saying though, I have started my own ghost hunting channel, and I'll be doing my first investigation as a group with Jada Gangster and GT at the Revere Forts in Hull.
Okay.
So I don't know if you ever heard of that before.
I've not heard of that play. No, I've not heard of it. What is it known for?
So it used to be an abandoned military base. I'm not sure of which era it was exactly used for, but from the structure and in the interior of it, I believe it could have been used during the World War II era or possibly the Vietnam era.
Okay. And it's known to have paranormal disturbances?
Oh, yes. I did when I went to see my boy not a few days ago, like a couple weeks ago. Me and him walked around there, and he says, "Yo, G, I know a good abandoned place that has a bunch of paranormal activity." And I'm like, "I bet." So we go there. I pull up the Paratech app on my phone. I pull up the Paratech app on my phone, and we get a lot of answers. And one of the answers, I asked the ghost or the spirits, "What do you want me to do?" And it told me to bend and roll over.
Okay.
So I don't know if I don't know if it was a soldier I was talking to or a potential incubus.
Oh, yeah, I guess it could be another option, couldn't it? Yeah. I mean, it's hard to say, right? Did you feel anything, touch you or not?
I have felt a little bit weird when I was in there.
Yeah.
And my bro GT felt the same thing. He's like, after we got that answer, he's like, "We got to get out of here."
Yeah.
So Fort Revere in Hull, Massachusetts, it's a historic site that played a key role in the defense of Boston Harbor from the colonial era up until World War II. So it's a very old site. Includes the remains of two seacoast fortifications, a water tower, and a military museum.
Yeah.
So it's been around for quite a while.
Well, I'm glad you got out of there.
I plan to do a ghost event.
Well, make sure you protect yourselves before you go in there, okay?
Definitely.
Yeah, don't worry. But I will say this though, and this wasn't just me, but I guess a lot of people have been seeing this entity too. Do you know of the demon Jezebel?
I mean, I'm familiar with the different variations of that. Yes.
Okay, so I guess a lot of people have been seeing that spirit.
Okay.
And I guess one of the few descriptions is that she's been appearing as a little girl with black hair and a white dress.
In that location or just around the area?
Just like pretty much, it doesn't matter where you go. She can just like appear out of nowhere and pretty much just like attach to you.
At that location?
And I'm not gonna lie.
I think he's saying anywhere. Like where if you're vulnerable, then you could pick up that particular spirit. That's what you're saying, B-Dex?
Yes.
So what do you do to protect yourself when you go on these investigations?
Let's say like a few prayers. I say like I perform like a minor rite of exorcism on myself.
Good. Okay. The St. Michael prayer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Well.
Yeah. The prayer of St. Michael.
Yeah. That's good. I mean, that's more than most people are doing. I can tell you that right now. That get into this. So that's a good approach towards it. You have holy water, right? I mean, you take that with you?
I have it stored in somewhere in my closet. Let me check. Damn, no, I don't. Okay.
Well, you need to get some more.
I do have a prayer book, though.
Okay.
I do have the prayer book of St. Michael.
Okay, good.
Similar to the one that you and Sister Mary Jones use when you're with Zach Bagans.
Yes.
Well, listen, if you're going to go...
My voice sounds a little bit shaky right now.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine.
Goosebumps just talking about this.
Sure, I understand.
Well, if you're going to go in there, make sure you do your research on the location. Knowledge is power, and then definitely make sure you take precautions before you go in there. And
well, I did see a pentagram. In there walking in. So
well, don't get in trouble for trespassing either, bro.
Jamie, did you say that it was used for paratrooping? Did you say it was used for...
It was used as a training facility. It's been around since colonial times. And used largely as a training facility. Yeah.
The whole stop, drop, and roll thing is...
Probably landing, yeah. When you jump off the tower and you have to stop and roll.
That could very well be what it was.
Yeah, because they did...
So it could have been not an incubus then.
Right.
Could be an echo.
They trained all the way up through World War II, so that's what I'm saying. Do your research on these locations. That way, sometimes when you get these answers, it'll make more sense to you.
You see, I would like to rule out that possibility, but here's the thing. I did see a pentagram in there in one of the rooms.
Well, pentagram's not necessarily going to be dark.
I mean, I'll say though, usually when it's in a place that's being used by paranormal investigators, it tends to probably be dark,
more darker. But yeah, you don't know for sure. I mean, probably.
Yeah, usually, you're not going to get a bunch of like happy Wiccans going into these dark places to just like have a little nature fest.
Pentagram by itself, I would want to know what else was around. You know, logically speaking.
I would say, B-Dex,
a few more clues.
It's good that you have those tools. Get yourself some holy water. I know in Massachusetts there's Catholic churches everywhere, so you shouldn't be too hard to find that. Just be safe. Be careful. And what was your YouTube channel again?
Ghost Exhibition.
Ghost Exhibition. Okay, so
that's the name of our ghost hunting channel.
Okay, so we'll log in and take a look at some of your content there, and I'd love for you to call back with your experiences from time to time.
All right, but do I still have time to continue?
I mean, yeah, we got a couple more minutes.
Okay. Can I get like a good 10 or 15? That sounds good.
I got to get to the next questions.
We've got other callers,
but I can give you 5. I can give you 5 more minutes.
Okay. That should be plenty more than enough. But so pretty much, like, if I do happen to encounter a cultist there, pretty much it's just gonna end up being like, yo, what's up? You think you're all bad and stuff? Pretty much. Yeah, because I'm with the boys there. If they try to mess with me.
Well, here's my concern, B-Dex. If y'all are committing criminal trespass by going there without permission, you are kind of inviting problems, not just with other people who may be exploring, but also with law enforcement. So just
be careful.
Take that little nugget for what it's worth.
My friend did his research, and we wouldn't be trespassing.
Yeah, it belongs to somebody.
People have camped there before.
Okay, but you need to have permission from the current owners, which I don't know if that's going to be the government or if it's privatized, but Just a little friendly advice. You don't want to get snatched up.
It's more like a public area. I'm not too worried about it.
Okay. Good. Okay.
Just be safe.
Just be safe. That's what we care about.
Trust me. My boy GT did his research before we do this investigation.
Okay.
But another thing I would like to talk about is analyzation. So I know you weren't in the investigation with Zach Bagans back in season what was it, season 15 or season 16? I'm not too sure. But has he ever told you about the investigation of like the Samaritan cult house?
I don't really talk to Zach too much about other investigations. Any conversations that he and I have are typically the one that we're working on at the moment. So, whatever case that's the immediate case is the only conversation we really have. So, no, I can't really say he's talked about any past cases.
Dang, I was going to ask you if you could put in a good word for me.
I get that question a lot too, and I basically just tell people that
it's a professional relationship.
My relationship with Zach is a professional one, and I respect his space on that. So, maybe he might listen to this show and he might hear you. I mean, who knows?
I'm not going to hound you with that question when I'm on the show. Don't worry.
Okay, good. Okay, but you never know. He could be listening right now. We don't even know it. So yeah, I think BDEX.
Now, if he is listening to this, I got one thing to say to him.
All right, go ahead.
Zach, you inspire me to become a ghost investigator. Thank you for everything you've done for the audience.
All right. Well, I think that's awesome that, that he's able to, inspire and he certainly does, for all of the fans of the show. And it's definitely a very popular show. It's still on the air. Not many are anymore. So the fact that he keeps going and keeps creating new ones means that he's definitely got the recipe for success when it comes to that. So I'm sure he would thank you if he's not listening. I'm sure he'd thank you if he knew. But BDEX, I'm gonna release you now. You got one more thing to say? I can give you one more minute. One more minute.
Well, I was gonna say again back to the analyzation.
Yeah.
So typically when he did the investigation of the Samaritan cult house, I don't know if you ever heard of like Linda Green, aka the Barcode Lady.
Yes.
Stuff like that. But she led the Samaritan cult.
Yeah.
And basically when they did the investigation there, they used a little bit of different methods when they did that investigation too. And I was kind of like hoping to like get the boys together and really analyze it, see if we could put these same methods to use when we do the investigation at Revere Forts.
Yeah.
And plus too, I've always wanted to investigate the Samaritan cult house at one point because let's just say, out of everything that I've heard, it's probably one of the most paranormal activity places in the U.S. If not the top 10 around there.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's probably true.
Well, there's many different methods you can use. Just remember to be respectful and keep provocation to a minimum. That's for your own good.
Yeah, I would never use provocation. I know that the Ghost Adventures did in the early days.
Right, they learned from it,
and they don't do it really that much anymore.
No, I know they're good people. They're good people.
Yeah, they are. They are. It's a pleasure to work with them. Actually, I really do enjoy my time. That I spend on the show. Okay, BDEX.
Yeah.
So, keep us up to date. All right, give us a call in later in the season. Let us know how things are going. People can log into your channel.
Would you want me to like send you a message or something like that of when we do the investigation, so that way you're up to date?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead and email the church. You got the church email, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Email the church.
Yeah.
And
hopefully my post-nasal drip clears up.
Yeah. It's getting into
Take some vitamin C, man, and get some rest.
It's that time of year.
Good hunting. Just Be aware of your surroundings.
Oh, trust
be
me.
Careful.
Oh, trust me. I'm taking some medication for it right now.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Get better.
Well, BDX, feel better, and we'll definitely keep track of everything that's going on with you. Make sure you give us a call later in the season. Let us know. Okay. Thank you so much for calling in. All right, everybody. That was, a good example, I think, of why we need to be extremely careful when we go investigating, because you don't know what you're going to come into. And sometimes, like Father Chris said, the risk is not a ghost or a demon, but a bullet. So you want to make sure that, you're doing things legally and safely. And
if this is an old military fort, it's most likely
still
at least
owned by the government,
by the state
Yeah.
as a park or something. So I would caution them about overnight investigations, because
you don't know.
Somebody's going to see a flashlight and call the police, and then that's a whole other issue you got to worry about. But,
so just be careful.
be
out
safe.
there.
Safe hunting.
Just be careful. But anyway, Brandon, we have more questions from the ether there, so let's get to the next one.
So the second question, back when the whole Olympics ordeal was going on, someone had sent me a lengthy post of someone who claimed to have done research into different religions, which I'll go ahead and say straight up, they did not. Anyways,
Okay.
oh God, it was awful. One section of this research was this individual was trying to equate Odin from Norse mythology with Legion from Mark chapter 5, verse 9. So my question is there a reason or like a underlining reference to why the demon is named Legion? Like, is it something connected with Rome or anything like that?
I mean, I think that there's definitely a parallel connection to that, because so much of the scriptures were written in that kind of in the kind of sense that they were under occupation. Of course, the Jewish people were very much marginalized under Rome, and they were not very well liked, and somewhat for good reason, because they didn't really like Rome very much. I mean, they didn't integrate very well. It was a very, look, the empire was massive, but it had the benefit. Rome was really actually quite good at adopting other religions, and being open to other religions. But the problem is Judaism is not at all. It's very, very one side, the one God, that's it, and there is nothing else. And so that doesn't.
And they were unusual. That was like
very unusual
in the ancient world.
Yeah,
that was the unusual idea that there's one God.
Because even monotheists, other monotheists, which there were other monotheist cultures, were not rigid in the sense of saying there were no other gods. They're just saying, this is my God, and this is the only God we worship. But the Jews were not saying that this is the only God we worship. They were saying this is the only God there is. And that's not going to go well with the rest of the empire, because everyone else is polytheistic. So there was just no chance that the Jews would have ever had a peaceful occupation under Rome like many of the other cultures did. And certainly there was benefit there, because Rome brought a lot of civility to, I mean, we think of them because we watch these old movies, right, where they're just beating everybody up. These Roman soldiers going
into villages and killing people
for no reason, raping women just because they're coming through. And it was not like that. I mean, I'm sure that kind of stuff happens just like it does today, but it wasn't as prolific. And certainly Rome was the mark of civility in the time, because the ancient world wasn't very civilized.
I can't resist the temptation. What did the Romans do for us? I can't.
Oh yeah. The life of Bryan, right? Life of Bryan, right?
Well, the roads, the sewers,
that's a funny scene. That's a funny scene. They're going back and forth. And there's just like they did this. They did the aqueducts.
It's actually a very well researched film.
It is.
I mean, it's far more profound about New Testament thinking than a lot of the sort of the soft focus Christian produced things.
Monty Python, anyway. Life of Bryan, look it up.
Funny too.
But I would say it's possible. It's possible that there is a connection there, because certainly like the Book of Revelation that we talk a lot about, it's all written in code about Roman things that are going on, right? So I would think that it would be very easy for a Jew of that time to have a demonic experience and be able to relate it to their fears about the occupation, where you see these Roman soldiers coming through, and that must have been a terrifying thing, that if you got out of line, that, what would they do to you? Because, the Romans, we talked about civility, but there was brutality too. One of the common things for Roman soldiers to do, even amongst themselves, right, is to be public shaming. Public acts of shaming, being like, if you did something wrong, okay, as a Roman soldier and you were disciplined, you'd be disciplined in front of everybody. If you deserted, you'd be crucified in front of everyone. Well, that was the whole point of crucifixion, was to not just kill you, not just torture you slowly while you die, but to shame you while you're doing it for 2, sometimes 3 days before finally asphyxiation gave in. So they were brutal. The definitely, if you did things wrong, they could be brutal. But at the same time, one of the worst punishments that Romans did was that you would, particularly if you were a soldier, and if you did something treasonous or something that would be very seriously wrong,
decimation.
Worse than that, they would take you out to the center of wherever, the center of town, and all your best friends in the legion would have to beat you to death.
I've actually seen that.
It was so that your friends had to kill you.
Yeah.
So that it was their shame too.
Right.
And then having to live with that, So yeah, we wouldn't do things like that today. I guess serial killers might, but that was normal behavior back then. Another reason, be careful of governments. But the fact of the matter is, I think that in the mind of an ancient Jew, it would not be a far leap to think of demons in the same sense that this is your archetypal image of what a demon would be like. These terrifying pagan soldiers coming into your kingdom, taking it over and putting you at risk is mostly how that could have been seen. And so that word might have been a play on that. I think it's perfectly reasonable.
Well, Legion's 5,000 soldiers. So imagine, seeing these soldiers coming at you in that amount of numbers, it would be terrifying.
It'd be terrifying. But in the last thought here is that, God represents in every aspect the highest expression of freedom. The demonic is the highest expression of slavery. And to the ancient Jews, Rome was the highest expression of slavery. Yeah. So they would have absolutely been able to equate Rome with Antichrist or the demonic or the devil. Because that would be their most representative example of those things. So,
well, I hold with the academic view that the Gospel of Mark is likely an account given by St. Peter when he was in Rome, and so I won't defend that with here and now because we'd be here all day. But I think that's probably true. It went far and wide across the Roman world. It must have had a big gun behind it. Yeah. And so it would make sense that, and that's why you see, even though it's called the mysterious gospel and they talk about the so-called messianic secret, because throughout Mark's gospel, Jesus does things he says, don't tell anybody. There's this kind of sense of the, and of course, we're also told, by the way, the first thing they do is tell everybody that they can't keep it in, right? But it actually begins, for those that think that, this entire gospel is supposed to be somehow hiding from the Roman authorities. Mm-hmm. Well, the first verse is the gospel of Jesus Christ, Son of God. Mm-hmm. Which is a deliberately provocative thing to say to Roman civilization. Because of course, Caesar was the son of God. And so I think that it's true to say that Mark's gospel is certainly makes use of things that would have made sense to the Roman world. And
there are allegories. In particular. There are definitely allegories that were built into this literature. There's no question about it. Mm. They were also talking in code so that they would not be accused of treason unless they be killed too. So it's possible. I mean, do I think Legion is like a name that, that Satan himself gave to some? No, I don't think that.
Oh, no, because I think it's the opposite.
Yeah.
I mean, our name is for a person.
Yeah.
Or for, whereas the very image in the gospel of the demon possessed man is that the demons, as we've said before, are not united. They're legion because they're fractured. Scattered.
Right. Yeah, that's what we were talking about earlier.
War with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They can't escape hell because they can't forgive themselves. They're at war with themselves permanently.
Right.
And eternally.
Eternally.
And that's the definition of being in hell. And that's why, if you look at people, ourselves in this life, we suffer trauma when we feel divided within ourselves. We can't forgive ourselves for some things, or we can't forgive, we don't like the person that's been generated by an experience. Mm-hmm. And the whole role of healing ministries, I mean, you know more about this than I do, of psychotherapy, and is actually to try and unite a person, hopefully around a good moral principle or a good way of life, an ordered way of life. But the idea is that we're seeking a kind of unity of thought, and the ultimate unity of thought is to be with the mind of God, which is what being in heaven is. And so, heaven and hell are present within. We experience heaven and hell. Heaven in those rare moments, those kairos moments, to use that Greek term of feeling at one with everything and everybody. That's heaven. And hell when we feel completely divided and fractured against ourselves. And that's, Legion in the gospel story of Mark is the exemplar of that chaos, that division.
Yep. And that's exactly the theological truth that's being conveyed here. It's more than history. The gospels are more than history. They contain history, but they're not historical accounts. Yeah. It's about now. Yes. It's about they are faith accounts, but what is a faith account? It's not just some ancient person's experience with God. It is that, but it's not just that. This is my experience with God to shed sunlight on the one that you are about to have if you go down this path towards salvation. That's what a faith account is. And that's what the gospels are. That's what all of the scriptures are faith accounts. They're not historical records. They contain history, and there are historical records that are attached to them, but not in the way. I mean, I was on TikTok putting the video, the ad for tonight's show on TikTok. Because that's the only time I use it.
I was about to say, what were you doing on TikTok?
Just doing the ads, just promoting the show. That's it. But you can't log on to TikTok without getting immediately hit with a video. I mean, as soon as you turn on the app, you're watching something that they want you to see. And I guess
I've
because
never been on it, I wouldn't know.
I know it's awful. It's awful. I wish I didn't have to be on it, but someone's got to run that channel, and no one else is going to do it. It's going to be me. So I logged in to create the video and post it, and sure enough, the video that it was showing me was this whole thing about how there could not have been how are we to believe, this is what it said, how are we to believe that God, that Noah put two pandas on the ark and was able to feed them the 1,500 pounds of bamboo that they eat like every week, or daily. I'm not sure how much. It's a lot of bamboo. It's like there's no way that the ark could have carried all the food, and then what do you do with the shit? And so it's like it's so laughable to me, because it's like this is the problem here, is that you've probably heard something from some guy who calls himself a Christian somewhere that told you this story as if it's like some kind of historical record.
Oh, absolutely.
When in fact, the actual Christians don't even think like that. Yeah. We know this is not a historical record.
It's way more important than that.
Far more important than
that. Like you said, these are not only faith experiences, but they're faith experiences that have survived the winnowing process of time. These are the ones that have survived for 3,000 years in some, maybe longer in some cases, depending on what your view. And so it's not like that's what weeds out the sort of, the Chris Yates faith experience. Like, who cares? I mean, if people are still talking about it in 2,500 years' time, I'll be very surprised. But if they are, then it's probably something worth listening to, but you have that kind of, that's the benefit we have, and why even people who are atheists should read the scriptures, because your credulity is immaterial. These are the stories that matter. The reason we know they matter, and it's not a matter of opinion, is because they've survived.
Well, there's another thing to it too, and that's something that again gets into more of the Western mystery tradition and esotericism. It goes far beyond typical theology or any of the conventions of church. So take it or leave it. I'm going to offer it here because it's something that I think makes sense. But there's a long held ancient belief that everything in the book of Genesis is actually the spiritual consequences of the fall. That this was not things that were taking place on planet Earth. These are not people and things that happened in some time immemorial. Like, we just can't remember when it happened. This was the spiritual thing. And so the whole story of Noah gathering the animals for the ark was probably literally a spiritual thing of saving the primordial spirit that represents each of these species as a semi-spiritual creature himself, maybe not even man as we understand it, because certainly Adam and Eve were not men as we understand it. And that could even be alluded to in the fact that the texts talk about these people living for 900 years. So, there's a whole reason that there's some strangeness to, like, with the Nephilim and the giants and all this weird stuff that people try to, say that, this is proof of aliens or whatever. No, I wouldn't even go down that direction with it. I'm going to say that I think the esoteric tradition's correct. I think the Western mystery tradition's correct. I think these are spiritual realities, ineffable experiences with God that are so far outside the human earthly paradigm that we can't even grasp it. So what you get is a story that sounds like a fairy tale, is very much a myth, but as we said, myths are truer than history, and this is why.
The story you hear as a child, you take it literally, and then as you grow older and more learned in the faith, you realize what each of these stories actually mean.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
as long as you stick with it. Well, as long as you stick with it and mature in your spirituality and your faith. A lot of people don't. They stay stuck in kindergarten, right, Bishop?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So that's because at least where I'm from within the church, from the time I was a child, first attending church, Noah's Ark historically happened. We can trace it back to around this specific time. And then archaeologists on the other side of the world believe they found Noah's Ark.
Well, see, that's the problem. That's the problem, is that they take it too far. The first part you said, I agree with. This is something that happened. The second part, that it can be traced in history? No, I don't think it can, because I think it happened outside of time in a type of spiritual reality that we cannot comprehend. So what we get is just the story that the human mind can comprehend, because we can relate to stories, and we're very good with archetypes because we're programmed by literally, we think archetypally. So having a nice fairy tale.
We especially relate to fantastical stories.
And why will fantasies are so popular, like Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter. Yeah. And, this is why we love these kinds of stories, because they speak to this higher spiritual reality that we know, we can feel is true, but you just can't connect with it because we're just too corporeal. So we're not talking about corporeal history. We are talking about things that happen, but we're not talking about corporeal history. And we're not talking about quantifying things in the way that we quantify things today, and that's where people go too far.
I think it's always, well, go too far is right. I mean, part of the appeal of the sort of evangelical Christianity that you're talking about, Brandon, is that it's kind of simple. Let's keep it within this kind of framework, because now, and I'm not saying that to put it down. Actually, I think in a way that's where it's effective to say, let's have these concrete, simple ideas that will lead you to salvation, because they're not exactly wrong, right?
Right.
Because on the other end of the scale, sophisticated complexity also goes too far, because you end up, discussing the number of angels on the head of a pin and forget about the important things of life, which is about, how we're living, how our faith is interacting, having our eyes fixed on the cross, that Jesus really died and rose from the dead. So there's dangers at either end of that. Now, what's so fascinating about the sort of evangelical quest for these historical events, like, we have to have this certainty of the ark being discovered. No, I'm actually open-minded about that. I mean, the answer is I don't know.
I think it demonstrates a lack of faith, to be honest.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Ironically, the faith-only people are the most obsessed with trying to find some kind
tangible
of historical
fact.
record to hang their faith upon.
Yeah.
I think choose.
Pick one.
Because it's a weird kind of there's an irony of holding those two things in tandem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but again, it's just pushing. It's always this polarity. I mean, I'm going to talk a bit now because I'm going to be gone in about 10 minutes.
Go for it. You sound so foreboding. I'm going to be gone in about 10 minutes. Like you're never coming back from wherever you're going. Off into the abyss, Father Chris.
He's about to have a good day.
He's going to look into oblivion and never return.
Well, that could happen too, right? I'm open-minded. I've drunk nice Armagnac. I'm prepared.
There you go.
But I was, it's always this polarity. So you mentioned at the top of the show about Vatican II, for example, and the turning around of the altars and all the rest of it. Actually, none of that is required by the documents of Vatican II. It's perfectly. I've read them, right? I've studied them because I'm boring. You read those documents, Lumen Gentium and the rest, or even the general instruction of the Roman Missal as was promulgated by Vatican II. But we have had a question around this as well, by the way. I should probably reference that from Raphael, who was asking about the problems with Vatican I and II, and he's looking at converting to Old Catholicism. Well, you're on the right channel here, by the way. What's actually the theology, if you like, of Vatican II documents, I don't think are particularly objectionable. Vatican I, the big thing there is about the papal infallibility being described and prescribed under Leo XIII. So that caused some dramas, to put it mildly. But Vatican II documents, they don't. I would argue, if you read the rubrics of the Roman Missal, it says things like the priest turns to the people and says, which rather presumes that he's facing the altar.
Mm-hmm,
okay, yeah. So in other words, it's not mandated at Vatican II that you have mass facing the people.
It just was permitted. It was permitted.
It's permitted.
Yeah.
And so some would say encouraged by the there were other documents that said if possible. So you go to some ancient church in England, the only way to achieve that is and some in Australia too, is they've still got the altar against the wall, but then they just put a coffee table altar in the middle of the church, which I actually think is weird, and nothing's necessitated by Vatican II by that. But it's this, the scariest ghost in the whole world is the spirit of Vatican II. Because in the spirit of Vatican II, all sorts of terrible things have been, terrible is probably too strong.
Doritos and Pepsi.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's right. So people's opinions and preferences and all the rest of it have been allowed to be indulged by what was actually a good spirit or a good intention of the fathers of the church at Vatican II, which is to say, we're not going to prescribe which way you wipe your backside anymore. We're going to keep, in a sense, the authoritarian nature of the church to a minimum. So instead of every Friday being a mandatory day of abstaining from meat, it's only Good Friday. That doesn't stop you from maintaining every Friday yourself. We're just not going to puppy train you. In other words, it was embracing that freedom, but that freedom is not a libertinism. It's the freedom to serve God. And so, and actually, as you've said many times on the show, including at the beginning of the show, it was because the church making demands in that way actually is stealing your grace. Because if you're doing it because the church says so with a big stick, then actually you're not building up your treasures in heaven. We're at risk of becoming like what Jesus was criticizing the Pharisees of. So so that's the shift. But like all things, and then you have these two poles within the Roman Church, who are those that love the council and want more councils because they've got a progressive agenda. Mm-hmm. And then you've got the other pole of the church, which is to say Vatican II was too far, and
they're afraid to have another one.
Yeah. Now the truth is they're both right and they're both wrong.
Yeah.
And but polarity is the nature of the fallen world. Mm-hmm. So just it's the St. Peter and St. Paul thing again. The zeal of Paul, the authority and structure of Peter. You need both embracing. And it's why, when people within the church, and it always hits the press, especially in America, oh, this cardinal said that, or this bishop said that, and you're getting told off by the Pope.
Yeah.
That's not a bad sign. That's a healthy sign. Mm-hmm. We're actually supposed to have these arguments. Mm. And, the days when the church appeared to be completely unified were not better days. There were days where those arguments were suppressed, where they were repressed, where they were hidden, and all of that was a dark approach to spiritual development. And the difference between what the church teaches, imposes, if you like, the dogmatic, doctrinal teachings of the church and that of the state, are that these days, thank God, because the church has developed, you have to consent to be a member of the church. You can only consent to that authority. Mm-hmm. It's why it's inappropriate for the government to become a church, which is what's happened basically in the West. Yeah. Governments have basically become the church. Mm. And the reason that's a problem, atheists think that's great because we can have the fruits of Christianity and the Scottish Enlightenment without any of the dogma. But actually they become far more dogmatic. And the difference is that it can be enforced with a gun. And you can go to jail if you don't maintain.
Well, that's why I tell people all the time. It's like, because the other side of the coin is true too. What you just said. There's these conservative Christians out here that want the government to be a church too, but they want it to be their church. And can you just imagine? It's like, well, the reason I tell people, Catholics are shocked. They're scandalized when they hear me, a bishop, say that I am pro-choice. That doesn't mean I'm for abortion. I am not pro-abortion. I am anti-abortion, but I am pro-choice. Why? Because I don't want some, and I'm going to use this as an example. I'm not talking bad about Muslims, but I don't want some Sharia law practicing Muslim becoming president of the United States and enforcing that shit on me. So I don't want to enforce, I don't want to enforce my religious convictions on people that don't want them, and it takes away their freedom on top of it. So there's no merit in that. If the law were to mandate that abortions under all circumstances are illegal because it's immoral, I have a real big problem with that. Because first of all, where's the government getting this authority to declare what's moral or not? That can only come from one's church, and that is only part of one's free choice to partake in those convictions. As soon as you start mandating, then it all goes to hell. So this is why I have to be pro-choice. Every Christian, if you care about your religion, if you are a person of faith, you have to be pro-choice. You have to be.
But it's also why the church can make excessive demands of people, because
the church, but not the government.
Absolutely, because it's a free choice.
Yeah, it's a free choice.
So if you do eat meat on Good Friday, nothing happens to you. There's not a bolt of lightning comes down from heaven and kills you. You're not going to get a letter from the local bishop excommunicating you from the church. These are. I mean, some people are so delusional. They do things that actually, more provocative things that there are some things that by very act of doing it, you are excommunicated, but you've done it yourself. Yeah. But you're not going to get a letter from a bishop or the Pope. You're not that important.
I never did. Look at what I've done. No. I mean, if anyone should be publicly excommunicated, you'd think it'd be me, and they haven't sent me anything. Maybe they will now. I don't know.
You just throw it in the fireplace anyway.
No, I put it up on the website.
First, yeah.
And the remedy is also very straightforward. It's only your own conscience that's going to convict you, and then you can seek remedy for that either at the confessional or if it's something graver at the diocesan level. But that's the whole principle of the church is, and this is where the church went really wrong. You alluded to it earlier. Was especially during the medieval period, where the church was the state.
Theocracy.
And so many people, especially in your country, because I know, because
all the horrible things that happened.
I keep up with your commentary all the time. They completely misunderstand what the founders meant when they said the separation of church and state.
Oh, they don't get it.
You know, they said no, there should be no federally imposed religion, nor should there be any religious test of office. And it's because basically they don't understand England. England had an established church, and if you weren't in the Church of England, you couldn't hold any office. That was what they were objecting to.
Right.
It did not mean that the state of Georgia couldn't have a state church. It can. It's allowed to.
Yeah.
What it means is it can't be federally imposed on everybody. And essentially what it means is we're not going to criminalize people by the government because you don't hold to
most state
religious virtue.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but most state constitutions also prohibit it. They've adopted the same thing. So
that's right.
Similar.
But they didn't have to.
They didn't have to. But they think they all chose to continue that mentality because it is a better system. I mean.
Yes. Agreed.
Particularly in a large country like America, you don't have the option to lock everyone into one particular corner. There's too many diversified cultures. There's too many diversified belief systems. And if this truly is a country for all, which is what they tend to say it is, I question that sometimes. I think it's just a country for the 50% that happens to be in power. But as far as I'm concerned, if we're going to hold true to at least the ideals of America, then we have to protect that at the state level too, and I think most of them try to at least, but I mean, it's but in that way, it's only the state that can become a tyrant, not the church. Yeah.
And what the reformers were objecting to in the 16th century was that was to, the church was the state. So when the church had a church law, it was the law. Yeah. And we had to go through that process, and we've been through that process. I mean, that's why what's so appalling for me to see in most Western countries now, certainly Australia and the UK, is we've now got this weird state religion. It's not Christianity, and now we've basically got dogmatic doctrinal creeds being imposed by the government, which means by the police, by force of arms.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize how dangerous that is. And they should read some more about the 16th century.
I mean, history, this is where history is valuable. I was having a talk with my son about, history, because that's the one subject matter he likes the least. He does not enjoy history. And it's probably the only subject that I enjoy. So it's like, we're very different people in that respect.
It's important to know your history.
But, we were talking about reasons why it's important. And a lot of these facts were coming up here is that, you don't know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. You know what I mean? And even though people continuously repeat the same mistakes. So I don't like when people say, well, you'll make this, you'll just make the same mistake. It's true, but they keep doing it anyway. So I'm not sure that really works. I think what really has to happen is that you have to not just remember history and go to school and just remember dates. You have to actually understand history, the context of it, just like the Bible. Bryan is always talking about the experiences he has. It's because these people remember their verses. Oh, they do Bible verse memorization. I remember when I went to the Baptist school, I had to. And, I kind of rejected that sort of thing. So I didn't do well in any of that. And I didn't care because I didn't see the value in it. It wasn't, for me, it's like, what good is remembering these verses if you don't understand them? And as far as I could see, none of these people that they could cite any verse. You could tell them what was Titus 2:11. What was Philippians 2:5? Let this mind be in you, which is also in Christ Jesus. Okay, great. You remembered that. Now tell me what it means. They don't have a clue. They don't have a clue. They think that means, we need to be Christ-like. Okay. And
what's that mean?
What does that mean exactly?
Keep reading.
That's true, though. I mean, so yeah, Father. I mean, I think you hit on a lot of good points here. tonight, and I think that, you know, these are things that are very fundamental to the problems that we're seeing in the world today, and particularly in this country. The divisiveness in this country is really being incited by this clash between these excessively secular types and these excessively.
Always ask the question. I don't care which side of this you're on. You know, if you're a Kamala Harris, you got her poster above your bed, or if you're a Trump devotee, just ask yourself the question: who does it serve to divide you?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Just ask that question and ponder that.
They don't want to, because that would be too scary of an answer, too scary of a result to figure that out. And they wouldn't like it. And they wouldn't want to look at themselves anymore. You know, Brandon asked, you asked on the network this week if it's true that demons don't like mirrors. I think it's true that people don't like mirrors because they don't like seeing their true selves. So maybe there is something to that, you know, because I think when you carry around a lot of darkness, and if you are somebody that proliferates this kind of divisive thinking that leads to this left and right, you know, war that we see in this country right now, and the political climate, if you're one of the people that likes to participate in that, then you're carrying around a lot of darkness. I don't care if you're left or right, you know, you are carrying around a lot of darkness. And who wants to take a look at that in the mirror? I wouldn't. I want to be able to look at myself in the mirror, be happy with what I see. I want to see a person that does the best that they can with what they have to work with, which is really the best that any one of us out there can really say. You know, that's as good as it gets. That's as good as it gets, because you're never going to be perfect. You're never going to be able to do things exceptionally. You just can do the best you can with what you've got to work with. And some people don't have a whole lot to work with, which means their culpability is lower. And if you're given a lot, you know, it's just like the scripture says, you know, to those much is given, much is expected. Well, yeah, then your culpability is going to be higher, but, you know, then you're probably more capable too. So don't be lazy. You know what I mean? Well, Father, I know you've got to get out of here, so I wish you good luck.
I'm sorry, I've got to go early.
Yeah, it's okay.
Rest your day.
It's okay.
Been a good show.
It has. Thank you so much for being here with us, and we'll see you next week.
Cheers.
All
Take
right,
care.
have a good one.
All right, everybody, we're going to take our break here since it's a good time for that. And don't go anywhere. We got more coming. We got another question from the ether. Seems like we're doing a segment now to get too much to talk about. You can always call into the show or ask your questions in the chat. Moderators will get those questions to us. Don't go anywhere.
Step into the night, where shadows guiding the way. That stage is after dark, where secrets unfold. Each tale is a treasure waiting to be told. Together we explore the unknown. We are the seekers of truth and of light, navigating shadows, turning dark into bright. Join us on this journey, hand in hand we'll stand, in a world of wonder, guided by the grand. In the depths of knowledge, the light will shine. Spiritual battles under grace divine. The holy Nicolean, a haven so true, embracing the lost, bringing hope anew. A family united, strong and bold. We are the seekers of truth and of light, navigating shadows, turning dark into bright. Join us on this journey, hand in hand we'll stand, in a world of wonder, guided by the grand. We are the seekers of truth and of light, navigating shadows, turning dark into bright. Join us on this journey, hand in hand we'll stand, in a world of wonder, guided by the grand. The message is guiding every heart. Together in faith we'll never part. The message is guiding every heart. Together in faith we'll never part.
Welcome back, everyone, to the third and final hour of Vestiges After Dark. It has been an excellent episode so far. Lots of interesting conversation. And Father Chris definitely gave us some really good insight, I think, in the last 10 minutes there. So more to contemplate. I think go back and listen to all that again. It's really a lot of good stuff. And I think it's important that we really start practicing a mature Christianity. It's time to leave the playground behind, folks. Okay, it's time to get serious. If you want to be a Christian, do it the right way. Too many are doing it the wrong way. We can talk more about that when we come back, or take some of your questions. Please call into the show, 802-321-0073. That's 802-321-0073. Not many questions. You guys are really quiet tonight. I don't know what's going on, but yeah. So, give us some questions. And we've got one more from the ether, but we don't have Father Chris, and, he can talk. So I'm going to need your help to get through this next hour. So don't go anywhere, okay? We'll be right back. when we have a very quiet chat room, it always tells me that either you're really contemplating and focused, or you're pissed off at something that we said. So it's probably a little bit of both, I think. But you know what? It's okay. Be a little pissed off. It's fine, because what's more important right now is that you're thinking, and so sometimes I do say provocative things. I am rough around the edges intentionally. Yes, I will, use vulgarity if necessary to get your attention. Certainly if I stand here and I get dressed up in my cassock with my cross and my, and I look at you like with my saintly eyes and I talk about how much God loves you. You're going to tune me out in about 5 seconds if I do that. You won't listen to me. You won't care, because that's what everyone else is doing, and that's why all these churches are just basically breeding grounds for people that just want to hear themselves talk. I'm more interested in actual conversation. I'm more interested in actually making the world a better place, and I think we can use religion to do that, because I think it's one of the most powerful tools we have, and I do think it was given to us by God for that purpose. So let's do the right things with it instead of all the wrong things, and that will hopefully make the world a little bit better for those of us who start that process, right? Because that's what it's all about. It's kind of interesting, listening to all of this that we've talked about over the last 2 hours, because I can't even tell you from my own personal experience. I'm a man of faith, absolutely by choice, because I have the conversation with my wife all the time. There are times where it's just like, I am tired of being a Christian. I'm tired of it, because I'm so sick of being looked at as someone that you can take advantage of, someone that has to be nice to you because that's my morality, and that you're exempted from, because you can be the asshole. Nobody expects anything from you. You don't go to church. You don't believe in Christ. But I've got to be held to a different standard, right? And that gets really tiring, because even if you don't think it, let's assume you are one of those kinds of people, even if you don't think you do that, you actually are doing that. You don't realize how much you actually do that and how receptive people of faith are to it, which only makes them more resentful and everything else. So believe me, I get it. I get what it is like to be on that side of the fence. I've been on multiple sides of the fence all my life, and I ended up here by choice, because God gave me a plethora of options that I could have done with my life, and I chose the hardest one. But he also, and this was the caveat, he showed me everything, but he also showed me the meaning behind everything. And the only choice that didn't have emptiness behind it was the one that I went with. The rest of those choices were empty, devoid of any intrinsic meaning. And see, that's what matters here. It's not about being rigidly following rules or being told what to do or faking being a good person because some 2,000-year-old book tells you to. It's about harnessing understanding in working towards something better, and knowing that you are flawed, but you'll never be perfect, but you can always be better than you are today, tomorrow. And then the next day you can even be better than you were the day after, the day before that. That's what it's about. And as long as you're getting a little better each time, then you're actually doing the most meaningful work that is available to you. I don't get involved in politics, and I talk about politics just because it sickens me, and it's damaging spiritually. But I don't get involved in politics. I don't have any problem telling any of you how I vote. When I go, I do vote. When I vote Libertarian. I know the Libertarian candidate's never going to win, but I vote Libertarian because I vote with my convictions. I'm not trying to control you or the world. I don't give a damn if you agree with my religion or not. I don't even want you in it if you don't agree with it. I only want you here if you want to be here. I only want you listening to me if you want to be here. I'm not interested in forcing you to do anything. I don't believe in that. So that's why I vote Libertarian, because that's my conviction. Yeah. Republicans and Democrats just want to control each other. I don't want that. I don't want that. I don't think you should either. But, that's your choice. And that's the beauty of it, is that you have the freedom to make that decision too. One day maybe you'll arrive where I'm at and realize, boy, how pointless was all that? Maybe not. But either way, you can be a little better each day. All right, Brandon, what's our next question from the ether?
So the third question comes from Abel. He asks, is it okay to perceive that God can and will protect me from physical attacks from other human beings?
Okay. Anybody is free to pray for any need or intention that you have. I mean, that's the whole point of intercessory prayer. God gives us the most perfect prayer, which is the Our Father. But any prayer is a good thing, and is something that is heard. If it's not answered the way you want it to be answered, that's where the problems begin. So I would caution anybody, including Abel here, to be a little bit. Anne, thank you for liking the stream. Thank you, Anne. I would caution you to be a little bit more careful with using words like perceive. Your perception has no bearing on the nature of God's will. All right? God's will is immutable. We cannot pray it into a different direction. All right? Nobody can do that. The greatest saint could not do that. Mary, the mother of God, if you're Catholic, you understand how important she is. She could not change God's mind. Nobody can. God's mind does not change. Okay, so if it's not God's will, it's not going to be answered the way that you think it will or think it should. And typically God only really gets involved in the minutia of life when it helps one to cultivate grace for salvation. So a lot of the blessings we get in life, which are kind of simple things to him, maybe significant to all of you, if you get things like this after you've prayed for them, whether it be protection or a new job that pays a lot of money because, you've got lots of debts and, you can't concentrate on your faith because you're too burdened with debt or whatever. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there with that story. And maybe you could pray for a good job that takes care of that. I mean, I wouldn't pray for a check. I certainly wouldn't pray to win the lottery. That's nonsensical. But if you want to pray for the ability to better your life, then I can guarantee you that the direction that God will take you will be where that is achieved. And it might not mean being debt-free. It might even mean bankruptcy. But if it leads to your own salvation and the salvation of others, then that's the point to all this. And that's the part that I think when we say, is it okay to perceive that God, you're kind of like talking for God when you say that. Okay? Your perception does not change anything, does not have any bearing on this. But will God protect you? If it's his will, he will. And if it's not, he won't. Okay? Because how many people pray for the protection of their children, but they still die in car accidents. They still get kidnapped and horrible things are done to them by these horrible people. And a lot of those kids were brought up in families of faith. What? God didn't protect that, didn't want to answer that prayer? And you can't think like that. Okay? Because that's not how it works. We don't control God. And God is under no obligation to answer any of our prayers. We're not worthy of any of it. But if we cultivate grace and we build a relationship that is based on faith, which is not about believing in him, but about trusting him, trusting in the gospel and what it means and what it says, what it actually says, rather. Maybe pray for that. You want to pray for something, pray that you can actually understand Scripture, because so many out there do not. If you do that, though, then you won't need to pray for protection because you already have it. And even losing your life will not be a lack of protection, because you'll see how inconsequential it all is. It's not about trying to last. You're never going to last here. Everything here is going to end. It's just a matter of when. So if you're trying to like waste prayer, and that is kind of wasting prayer in a way, although no prayer is truly wasted, but you are kind of missing the point if you're not praying in a way that leads towards something of intrinsic value to your salvation. Then it's like, well, what's the point then? Because that's what we were talking about earlier, a very playground, preschool, kindergarten kind of relationship to God. And you can't expect results with that. It's kind of like when, a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old toddler gets in trouble and doesn't know what they did wrong. Maybe they went to reach for the hot pan on the stove and they got slapped, and they just, all they see is, I got slapped. And that's kind of what's happening to a lot of you. You're getting slapped on the wrist because you're trying to push towards things you shouldn't. And then you're imprinting on God that he endorses this by saying, I perceive it to be. And I'm not saying Abel's doing this, but that's the danger of that kind of language. All right. So this is why the Our Father is the perfect prayer, because it doesn't ask for anything other than what is needed for salvation. That's the most perfect thing. And as long as you will be taken care of for that purpose. What more do you want? Is it to be comfortable, to be happy? Well, those are good blessings. And sometimes God will understand that a depressed person is not going to have the best opportunity, or even allow himself or herself the best opportunity to cultivate grace, because they're too consumed by their depression. But then even then, it's like, well, what is your depression based on? Is it something valid, or is it just an ego trip? A lot of depression and anxiety is just ego trip, It's just, you're so important that you think that life should be different than it is, and it's not. And so you're upset, or things aren't going your way. So you're upset. Anxiety is like, you're scared. You have no trust in God. You have no trust in God. I used to understand, I went through a period of time in my life early on when I was having my own personal spiritual struggles and crises, which, if you don't have a history like that, then you're not doing it right. All right. So
I guess I'm doing it.
Yeah, I think we're all. I mean, I think
few myself.
most of us, should say that. Yes, I can relate to having a spiritual crisis. There is an existential crisis that we should all go through. It's part of the journey. Okay, and if you're not going through it, then if you haven't had an existential crisis, I'm going to say it. It's going to piss some of you off, but it's okay, because you need to be pissed off about this. If you've not had an existential crisis in your life, then you really are in the preschool. You haven't graduated. All right. So be easy on yourself, because you're just not ready. But if you've had the existential crisis, then maybe it's time to graduate. Maybe it's time to take the test.
Level up.
Yeah. I mean, that's what's needed. Okay, that's what has to happen at some point in your life, and so I can say, like, I went through a time where, when I was going through this existential crisis, I did feel anxiety, and it was bad. It was bad anxiety, like panic attack kind of reactions. I was young, but it was probably somewhat hormonal too, because certainly at the end of puberty, your hormones will start to balance out, and that change and shift in hormones can definitely cause anxiety problems for which is why there's so many freaking teenagers on these psychotropic drugs today, because they're just not, their doctors don't understand this, and they don't realize that you just need to help them work through it. But how I did it? I did it through faith. Because once I realized that my anxiety was just a lack of trust, because I wanted to be in control, I realized that my anxiety was an ego reaction. That's when it went away. And, I never felt it again. And I've not really ever had. I mean, when there's a lot of stress, you'll feel anxiety stress. That happens because I live a somewhat stressful life. mean, the life of an exorcist, the life of a priest, it's not always great, right? So there's a lot of responsibilities and things on my shoulders to hold the whole world together, it feels like sometimes. And that does cause a different type of anxiety. It's not a panic-inducing anxiety. It's more of a, God, I'm so stressed out, kind of anxiety. I still feel that, but that's not one that's based. So there's different types, just like the different types of depression. There's nothing wrong with you if someone died and you feel sad. Nothing wrong with that. That's normal. What's wrong is when you just think you suck, and there's no reason to think you suck. You just got low self-esteem because you have no faith in yourself. You have no faith in God. That's spiritually problematic. That's God telling you it's time to pay attention. It's time to work on this. But what most people do is they'd rather go get medicated. Now, sometimes you need medication, but I will say most of the time you don't. And most of these psychiatrists out there are worth shit. Most doctors today are worth shit. They're just doing checklists on their computer. They're not even paying attention. They don't even know how to diagnose anymore.
Yep, I made it 3 sessions with one before I fired him.
Yep. Oh, I can't tell you how many I've gotten rid of.
I'm just fine.
So anyway, we've got some questions here. I see the first one here is, well, that's not the first one. That's the one that's on my screen right now from April.
Yeah.
It's good to hear from April. We haven't heard from her in a while. April, what are your thoughts about young kids who talk in detail about a past life? Okay, that's a good question. All right, past lives. This is another metaphysical question.
Yeah, we've talked about this before.
Yeah. I don't subscribe to the theosophical model of reincarnation. Okay. That's the one that most people are familiar with. The theosophical model. Okay. Which is they went to the East and they studied Eastern religion and they brought it back and they converted it into their little new age bullshit. Okay, which is this idea that you choose your lives and you have your little social contract and then you choose your parents and even your struggles. Oh yes, that child's choosing his child molester too, don't you know? That's what they teach. It's bullshit. Okay? Sometimes bad things happen because people are assholes. You didn't choose it. You're a victim of it, but you didn't choose it. So I kind of resent that kind of thinking. But this idea that you just keep getting reincarnated and to learn your lessons and all this shit, this is not what a past life is, and this is not what reincarnation is, and this is not what, I mean, okay, there are Hindu schools that teach something similar to that, but in Buddhism, which is the model that I subscribe to, is much more advanced than that. And the most important part of Buddhism is this doctrine in the religion called anatta. And that is, it literally means no soul. And that's not like, they don't use the word soul like we in the Christian world use soul. Okay, so we're not talking about that. We're talking about when Buddhists talk about the soul, they're talking about the self, the identity of who one thinks they are. And that is empty of all reality, both in the Buddhist worldview as well as in the Christian, whether you realize it or not. Okay. Christ is constantly referencing the emptiness of the ego. It just isn't being used in those terms. Buddha was a little bit more direct in this respect so that we get more clear language in that, which is why I say, again, Buddhism helps to clarify some of the things that are kind of mysterious in Christianity, which is why I kind of will never leave my Buddhist self behind because it's too valuable. But the point is, and yes, Mystic brings up a good point. We deal with this. I've been teaching classes on this every Saturday for the last, 5-6 years. And anybody can join. You can just go to Nicolaitan.org or esotericcatholic.org and click on webinars, or maybe it's under seminars. I'm not sure which one. And just sign up, okay? And then you can be a student, and every class I've ever taught is archived there. So you can start from day one, all those years ago, and you can take the live classes every Saturday if you want to. 6 years minimum now, I think. Yeah. And we talk about these things in more detail than what we do on this show. But reincarnation in the Buddhist worldview is more specialized in that because there is no self. There's no soul. No, it's anatta. No soul. No self to get passed on. But what does get passed on is all of the collection of energies that are gathered while a particular being is cohesive in this kind of corporeal form that we call the human body. So all the memories and all of the information is stored because information can't really be lost. It's kind of like matter. It can't, or energy. It can't be created or destroyed. It just is. So the fact that you have thoughts and you've generated thoughts means that they exist. Just by having the thought means that it's real. It exists. And so that does not go away just because there one day will be a lack of cohesion and then you die. That energy continues to exist as it always has. But the cohesion does not. The cohesion will not last. So all of this data gets scattered and recollected into that which comes next, which is all these new beings that are being born. And that data sometimes gets attached into the person being born, and they have a past life memory. They have a memory of somebody that had that experience. It wasn't them, but it was the energy of them.
And aggregate structure?
Yep, the aggregate structure. Absolutely. So that's what that is. And that's a perfectly metaphysical question and a perfectly metaphysical answer. I can't give you a theological one on that because the Judeo-Christian worldview doesn't have any room for reincarnation. It's just not relevant. It's not that they don't believe in it. I mean, I will tell you they don't believe in it, but it's not relevant to Christianity because Christianity is only concerned with one thing, salvation. Reincarnation is exactly what you don't want to have happen, which is another reason why I'm against theosophical viewpoints and all this soul contract, new age bullshit, because they make it out to be like reincarnation's a good thing. No, it's the worst thing that can happen to you. The Buddhists are trying to stop that process, not continue it. The fact that you're here means that something's wrong. All right, from the Christian worldview, fallen world, original sin. From the Buddhist point of view, you're stuck on the wheel of samsara and you haven't figured out how to liberate yourself yet. If whichever one you want to subscribe to.
Back around you go.
Yeah, back around you go. And that's not good. That's not what you want. That's not desirable. Liberation's desirable. Nirvana, okay, the extinguishing. The word nirvana means to extinguish. It doesn't mean heaven, doesn't mean to transcend. It means to extinguish. You extinguish the suffering, and therefore you arrive at the truth that there is no you. That's the hard part for people to get. Christianity doesn't go that far into the metaphysics. Buddhism takes the metaphysics further, which is why I like it. So these children that have past lives, yeah, I think they are remembering the energy that they collected at their births, or actually in their conceptions. While they're being formed in the womb, these aggregates are being collected, and it's just the energy of what came before them. But it was no more them than I am you. We're both distinct individuals here, right? And Jamie and I are not the same person. But when we both die, assuming we don't attain to salvation, which is the caveat here, because salvation will actually lock and fuse those aggregates into a permanent structure. Assuming we don't, then that energy just gets reabsorbed and continues the cycles on. That's the whole annihilation thing of hell. So that's the one thing the Jehovah's Witness got right, is that hell is not a place where you suffer. It's not even a place at all. It's just the annihilation that is already you. You're already annihilated. It's salvation is now becoming someone. One of my esoteric teachers, the one that had the most profound impact on my spiritual development, once said to me that I asked him, I said, does heaven exist? And he says, not yet. We're building it right now. And he's right. So hope that answers the question.
Got one from Not Sure.
Okay.
Read a little bit. Apparently he's part of a MC club, motorcycle club.
Okay.
And he's been put in the position of a chaplain for the group. Oh. And it's mixed beliefs. And he's wondering the best way to navigate everyone having mixed beliefs.
Well, I mean, it's about tolerance in this context, is that you have to set some ground rules. Okay, you can always encourage people to say, well, this is what I believe, this is what we believe, whatever. When my church believes this. But you have to put ground rules down that while you can have open discussion, you can't call people out and say you're wrong, because that's unfortunately what a lot of these syncretic kind of groups can sometimes turn into, where it just becomes a shouting match between people thinking, somebody's going to get butthurt eventually. Someone's going to say something that the other person doesn't like. And I understand it because it's very tempting. It's like if I were in a group where there was a Mormon or a Jehovah's Witness, let's use the Jehovah's Witness because we were just talking about them last week. If I was in a group with a multi-religion group, and me as a Catholic bishop, and they start talking about how Jesus is not God, that's going to be provocative to someone like me because, and what would be worse is not just them saying that. I could accept that they would say that. What I couldn't accept is that they still want to be called a Christian. I can't accept that, because fundamentally that is actually factually wrong. Christian is the creed of Nicaea. If you don't agree with that, you're not a Christian. Call yourself anything you want, just not that, because that's not a Christian. I'm sorry, it just isn't. No Christian believed that. After Nicaea and it unified the church into what the religion is and said this is our faith, that's when Christianity became what it is. And you're not that if you don't agree with it. That's just fact. Okay, so I'd have a hard time with that, but so you have to put ground rules down. That you don't have those kinds of discussions where you can have open conversation, maybe even have a chance for everybody to share what it is that they believe. But you got to be really careful to stifle the provocations which are going to inevitably happen. I remember, I was once it's a little bit different than what he's describing here, but I went to a non-denominational university called Palm Beach Atlantic University in West Palm Beach, Florida, and that is, they call themselves non-denominational, but I hate to say it,
denominational.
They are denominational to the point that if you're Catholic, you really don't feel terribly comfortable there. They had Jewish students, they had probably Muslim students there too. I mean, I don't know, but they had certain requirements. That one of them was chapel. You had to complete so many credit hours of going to chapel in order to graduate. But you couldn't say. I did. I said, I want a Catholic mass. I don't want to go to this because it was some evangelical crap. It was like an evangelical church service, and I'm not into that. I don't want to hear people playing stupid music. I don't want to hear people, doing these little skits, and I don't want that. I wanted the mass. That's my spirituality. Okay, I don't have any problem with people that want to do that. Go do it, but don't make me do it. But mass would not count. They brought mass in, but if you went to the mass on campus, that did not count towards your chapel requirement. You still had to go to theirs. Wow. That's not non-denominational. I'm sorry. That's not non-denominational. Wow. Maybe it's changed in the last 30 years, but I mean, when I went, it was not like that. So, no, 20, it wouldn't be 30 years. It would be about probably 20, well, almost, it's going on 30 years, close to 30 years.
Kind of reminds me of a large church that's supposed to be non-denominational here in Atlanta that we asked for assistance in allowing us to use one of their conference rooms, and it was great until they found out we were Catholic. Then it was like, oh, we don't think you guys mesh with us.
Yeah, they basically
so
said
you're
that.
not non-denominational.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you just want you're non-denominational with the types of people that you want, which is, so you're tolerant until you get to people you don't like.
Right.
So basically, that's what you want to kind of avoid, is that you're going to have people in these kinds of groups where they're going to have very strong beliefs in certain things that are going to clash with others. So there has to be protocols in place, and you need to be prepared for dealing with those things when they happen, because they could inevitably happen. Chances are you're not going to have a group that's so open-minded that everyone's really fascinated with everyone else. It's just not going to be like that, most likely. So just be prepared. You got to set some ground rules from the beginning. Come up with an idea as to maybe 10 rules that protect each member from being or feeling that they're not being respected.
Rule number 1: respect each other's beliefs.
Yep.
Rule number 1.
That needs
They
to be.
Can't get past that, then there's no point.
Yeah. So that's a tough thing. But then again, military chaplains deal with this all the time, right? I mean,
yeah.
They're usually of a particular denomination or faith, but they have to serve the entire troop. We
had some good ones when I was in.
Yeah.
I mean, they're pretty well rounded.
Yeah. So that's the best advice. I mean, I'm not a chaplain. I've never been a chaplain. I don't really, but I mean, I do. I think have a wide audience, because I am a relatively open-minded person, even though we do tend to talk a lot about the Catholic faith on this channel, and I do, perform my jobs and duties as a bishop, which can sometimes look rigid when I'm in those, those positions. But it is, I look, Jamie and I are getting ready. We have a case this week that we're working on. That's in Las Vegas. So I think we're gonna miss some of these storms probably.
I don't know, come back
or maybe come back into them. Who knows?
Might be sketchy when we get back.
Yeah, who knows? I don't know. But we have a case in Vegas, and I know that these are not Catholics. We're not going to be serving Catholics. This ministry rarely serves Catholics. So I have to put myself into the mind. Sometimes the people are not even really Christian. I think this family is, but sometimes they're not. I've mentioned on this show before how many times it hasn't happened in a while, but in the early days of this ministry, we got a lot of requests from Saudi Arabia, from Muslims that were dealing with jinn, and they're like, my imam does not know how to handle this. We need help. And it's like, well, I'm not going to Saudi Arabia, sorry, buddy, but I can maybe give you some direction. Yeah, I don't think they'd like this bishop getting off the plane. I might not make it back. But the whole point is that I'm having to change my paradigm to work within the one that I find myself. So that's what you got to do, is that you got to create a group paradigm, one that is going to work cohesively for all. And the only way to do that is to put down ground rules where you got to limit. You can talk, you can converse, you might even be able to debate, but you can't attack. So back to my school thing. I kind of lost track, but anyway, this was the kind of school I went to. When I was in the graduate program, I was studying at that time to get a master's degree in education, because I wanted to teach at the time. I don't know what the hell I was thinking, because I would not want to be a teacher today. But at the time, it seemed like a pretty damn good idea. I don't know. But anyway, $30,000 down the drain for this degree, by the way. But anyway, I went. One of the things I had to do was do a debate, and the topic that I got selected for was evolution.
Oh boy.
And so they asked me which side of the argument did I want to defend? Did I want to defend the scientific side that says that we evolved from primates or lower primates? Or did I want to defend the Christian side? The Christian side, by the way, which is not true, by the way, but anyway, they saw it this way because they apprehended the term. The Christian side that says that God created us, and I guess the world has only been here for like 5,000 years or something.
Yeah.
And that we were always men, we were always Homo sapien. And it says, well, I told them, I said, there's only one side of that argument that I could possibly defend comfortably, and that is the side of science. I'm sorry, I can't buy into that nonsense. So I'll happily fight this one. So I came up with this. I mean, I'm a hell of a good debater, as you can probably imagine. I don't do it very much anymore, but at the time I used to like to fight. And I came up with this whole list that they had pages and pages of arguments, vestigial structures, the development of fetus across all mammals, the characteristics of phylum Chordata, and I had all of this data there to show that it's irrefutable. It's irrefutable that we evolved from lower animals. Okay, my opponent, she had like a short little paragraph on one little index card, and her first point was because God made us. It's like, that's not even an argument. What the hell are you even talking about? And just in my response, because he gave me a rebuttal, and that's how debates work. They say one side says a statement, and then you get a rebuttal. So my rebuttal was, what does that have to do with our with evolving? So God can create us and still create the process of evolution. I don't get your point here. So it got really nasty really quick.
She was not prepared.
Not prepared. She had no refutations to anything I came up with. She did not like the vestigial structures in particular. I remember that, the wisdom teeth, the appendix, all that stuff. And so she, the professor stopped it. I'd say it didn't even last 10 minutes. And he goes, okay. You guys, equal points to both parties. You're tied. You're tied. Everybody gets a fucking trophy. I was so. You know what I did? I left the program after that shit.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I did. I couldn't deal with that kind of crap. But that's the kind of thing that happens. So it's like, we're interdenominational. We're non-denominational. We accept everybody. We're open. No, you're not.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you're going to run a group like that, you need to be. You don't have the option of not being that. Okay, so that's the only advice I can give. So we have another one from Rachel B here. How much do you feel intellectual capacity play and a person's ability to strive to be better? Oh my God, what a fantastic question.
I know. I needed that question about an hour and a half ago.
Yeah, Rachel, I hope you're still with us because I really want you to hear my answer to that, because I say all the time, particularly from a Christian point of view, that the real reason that religion is failing today, to not only failing within religion where people are using it the wrong way, but people are leaving it in droves. And the reason for this is that Christianity in particular is too intellectually challenging for the average intellect that can get by in society today. So it's not that people are necessarily being born more stupid or that the average person is deficient, although I will say that I think there are some reports, I mean, don't quote me on this, but I have read them over the years, so I think they're true, I'm pretty sure they're true, that the average IQ, which has always been on the standard of 100, right? So anything above 100 is considered above average, and anything below is, you start getting into mental retardation level, right? The average is now, from what I understand, closer to 90. When I was a kid, it was 100. So there definitely seems to be a decrease in intellect. So I think that can be attributed to technology, how computers are thinking for us, so that a lot of the things that you had to do before, you don't have to do anymore. Like, to be a good writer in the 1940s, all you got was a typewriter and a dictionary if you needed one. You didn't have spell check. You didn't have voice activation. You didn't have a chat GPT writing, your lessons for you. You had to do this all yourself. And I think what that has done is it's diminished our ability. It's not that we're more stupid. It's just we're projecting more stupidity because we're not using it. So it's use it or lose it. And I do think that when you look at all of these religions coming from 2,000 or more years ago, Islam is about 1,500 years old. Christianity is 2,000 years old. Judaism is like 4,000 years old. Buddhism is 2,500 years old. Hindu is probably like 8,000 years old. I think you can trace it back that far. These are ancient people. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have television. They didn't have stupid idiots, writing stupid songs, telling them to be stupid people. You had survival, and that was it. And if you were rich, maybe you could get yourself an education. But that's about how it worked. Okay, so the people that used their brains back in those days were exceptionally intelligent, could talk circles around anybody today, including me, because I'm still a product of a lot of that. I've tried to fight it, but I mean, there's only so much you can do. It's like what you do, work with what you have to work with, do the best that you can. That's what I said earlier. But the fact of the matter is, I do think Christianity and religions like it are too sophisticated for people today. I would say that about Islam, because you know why? You know where the intelligent Muslims go? They go to Sufis. Sufism is like brilliant Islam. But dumb Islam is when you go and you attach a stupid bomb to you and you blow up a bunch of people because you're fucking upset about some government. That's what happens when you're stupid and you practice religion. Christianity's no better. We don't tend to blow up people, but we do other stupid things. We destroy lives by, teaching the book of Genesis as if it's like historical fact. That's a fucking stupid thing to do. Okay? And this is what happens. I'm pissing off a lot of people today, probably, but but the fact is, it's so important because I can't fix it. My job, okay, I'm commissioned by God. This is my duty as a bishop to make this world better. And I cannot play by your rule book. All right. We're going to have to play by God's rule book. And that means we're going to have to get edgy and we're going to have to feel upset and we're going to have to allow ourselves to feel the hurt. Okay. Everyone's afraid of pain today. You got to start to embrace it. All right. You're afraid of death. Embrace it. It's going to happen. Look it in the eye. It might be tomorrow. Could be tonight. All right. Accept it. That's your reality. And you should always be focused on it. Not at the expense of being happy. You can still be happy and still face it. All right. I live in the shadow of death every single day because I never forget that. All right. So why remember when we used to have the skull in the chapel up front and people were always like, why does that bishop have a
still
skull?
In there, it's just behind the iconoclastic.
Yeah, it's still in there. You just can't see it as well on
we had
screen.
a bunch of comments about that.
It's like, why does he have a skull in there? It's like, because I am always mindful of my death, my friend, and you should be too. All right. You should be too, because it's coming. It's coming faster than you think. You wake up one day, you're 50. The next time you wake up, you're 70. The next time you wake up, you're dead.
Yeah.
There won't be any waking up. That's just the way it is. So we can play all these little games with ourselves and play politics and do the Donald Trump thing and do the Harris thing and all this shit. But the fact of the matter is, in the end, after you get beyond all the religions and all the nonsense, the fact of the matter is, you still have to use your head. And so to answer the question, I do think being better does require intellect, because when you're stupid, you choose the path of least resistance. Stupid people have one thing in common. And mark my words, just because I say you're stupid doesn't mean I'm saying you're genetically predisposed to have a low intellect. I'm saying you're choosing it most of the time.
Willful stupidity.
Willful stupidity. It's the worst kind of person. But they all have something in common. You know what it is? You're all fucking lazy. You don't want to be challenged. You don't want to feel pain. You don't want to hurt. You just want to exist. And I'm sorry, I'm not interested in existing. I'm interested in knowing. Okay? That's the only thing I care about. All right? So throw that your fucking depressions and your psychiatrists and all this shit away and get real with yourself. Stop letting your ego run your life, okay? But that does take intellect, okay? But you can increase your intellect. I've told you the bad part. Let me tell you the good part, all right? Here's the good part. Anybody can improve their intellect. You can increase your intellectual capacity, your IQ. And I'm not talking about doing brain games and all this other shit. I mean, that doesn't hurt. Stimulating your brain is always a good thing. I like to play strategy games. That's how I do it. Okay. And of course, my job is mentally stimulating enough. So I really don't have too much of a problem keeping my brain sharp. It's not as sharp as I would like it to be, but it's sharp enough to do my job well. But, I wasn't always as bright as I am now. And I hope one day I can be even brighter than I am now. Because sometimes I'll be like, Bryan, that was fucking stupid. What the hell are you doing? I'll tell myself this. And I tell myself, my wife gets mad when I do this. Don't belittle yourself. I have to belittle myself. I have to call attention to it when it happens so that I can make the move to not do it again. I want to feel that pain. Because you know what pain does? It motivates. Pain is what makes change possible. You don't get born without pain. Your mother did not get through it without pain. And some women say that it doesn't hurt.
We have a saying in the military, pain is weakness leaving the body.
Yeah, I like that. I do. And you know what happens when you embrace pain? You get smarter. Your brain starts to work better. So just because you might take an IQ test and score 75 on it today doesn't mean you can't score 120 tomorrow. Well, maybe it does, but maybe in 2 years you might be able to improve it by making changes to how you go about your life. Turn your fucking phones off. Stop with the TikTok and the social media bullshit. Stop believing all these convoluted conspiracy theories that are being pushed out there by the media that you just eat up, and you give them all that money because you're looking at their stupid ads on YouTube and everywhere else. Not here, not on this channel, but out there. Stop and start reading actual literature. Go to a symphony and study real music, not this synthesized bullshit. Look at what it really means to write music. Look at the greats like Mozart or Beethoven or something like that. It's intelligent music. Stuff that, even brilliant musicians today could not write because it's too beyond them. Look at that. Look at the best. Okay? And allow yourself to become better. So, yes, Rachel, intellect is the biggest part of the equation, the biggest, challenge, because too many people have an atrophied brain. I think is what it really is. It's atrophy, and in religion we see that as apathy. And so when we see these demonic possessions and these demonic oppressions and all this stuff and all these spiritual problems, and I'm depressed about that, and I feel bad about this, and God doesn't love me. Oh, woe is me. When it really comes back to it, it's like, well, you're just an apathetic person. Your brain is atrophied. Your soul is atrophied. Start building it back up again. Start using it and watch the changes happen. It will be remarkable. All right. So like I said, give us a prayer. Jamie and I are going off on a particularly bad case from what we understand.
Yeah.
And we're going to need your prayers, okay? But we'll be back, next week. You'll the normal time, Tuesday at 8 p.m. We'll have JJ back with us to talk about Zoroastrianism.
Excellent.
So that's always talk about intellect. That's always an intellectual show when he's on. He's a great mind and informative. So that's next week, Tuesday at 8 p.m. And I want to thank all of you. I'm sorry if I offended you, but don't be offended, okay? Don't be offended. Use this. Look at the method of my madness. I don't do this to get you upset. I do this to wake you up. One day, you might have a little Gnostic experience from it. We call that epignosis in the Christian church. I'm not talking about Gnosticism in the Sethian or Valentinian sense. Anyway, that's it. That's all I got for you tonight, folks. Thank you so much. Thank you, Brandon, Father Chris. If you watched this part, thank you for being on the show. Jamie, thank you. And until next week, I'll see you out there in the ether. God bless everyone.